Pirate's Most Powerful Villain, Chapter 441-460. Chapter 0441-Angry Yamamoto Yuanyujai. Boom. A huge explosion resounded through the entire Seirenge, and the sound pressure alone caused a strong earthquake. Within a radius of several thousand meters, the earth trembled, and the majestic Searing Palace was full of vermin. "Captain!" someone yelled. After a long time, the aftermath gradually dissipated, and the rain that rose into the sky after the explosion was scattered all over the sky. The rushing rain slapped the ruins of the Seraiti. "Pretend to be dead." Heilong hovered high in the sky, looking down, looking for the figure of Yamamoto Yuanyujai. At this moment, the temperature rose sharply, and then with a bang, a pillar of fire rose into the sky. In the pillar of fire, the figure of Yamamoto Yuanyujai gradually walked out. Compared with before, Yamamoto Yuanyujai at this moment looks embarrassed. The Death Tyrant's costume has been torn into pieces, and the exposed shang has a claw mark on the front, dripping with blood, and there are also wounds on the arms, back, and face that were injured by the explosion of the water polo. Sure enough, it's not that easy to kill. Heilong was not surprised. The previous blow might kill a captain, but it is obviously unrealistic to kill Yamamoto Yuanyujai. At this moment, the other party is also mostly traumatized, and his own spiritual pressure is still at its peak. HMPH, monster. Yamamoto Yuanyujai snorted heavily, and his murderous intent was completely undisguised. "You are enough to be arrogant enough to hurt this old man. A monster as strong as you must not have many dreams in you." In this case, the old man said that he would leave you behind. In words, he had already reached the peak of Reiatsu, but started to climb again. Swastika. Benlong's interest is exhausted, this time just to say hello, Yamamoto Yuanyujai, and the gods of death, the three worlds belong to each other. If I step into the world without permission in the future, my dreams will not sit idly by. Reason. Heilong said loudly, glanced at the many captain-level gods of death, and then swung the dragon's tail and quickly left. Goodbye then. Want to run? Yamamoto Yuanyujai narrowed his eyes, and immediately gave up Bankai, chanting in a low voice, "Space ban." In an instant, the space around the sea dragon seemed to be frozen, and it seemed to be peeled off from the soul world, forming a closed space. "You can't escape. Since you're here, don't even think about leaving. The old man has a lot to ask you." Yamamoto Yuanyujai's eyes were cold, and he was obviously extremely angry at what happened to Lingting today. Isn't it a high-level ghost in the space department? It's not the ability in the number 100 ghost, it seems to be some kind of forbidden art. Forbidden art must have a price. Blocking this large space is not good for you, right? Heilong turned around, but didn't panic at all. Instead, the old god said on the ground, "Think this kind of thing can block me and wait." Buff. Yamamoto Yuanyujai remained calm, but did not immediately take action. And LT, obviously blocked the space in a hurry, preventing him from attacking immediately. At this moment, a ghostly laughter sounded. I saw a wisp of black smoke condensed above Heilong's head, slowly turning into a human figure. Anyone else? Many captain-level gods of death all changed, and they sensed the appearance of the fourth character for the first time. As the space blocked, the shadow demon was pitch black, like smoke and dust, standing on the top of the sea dragon's head, staring at the god of death. "It's a pity, Yamamoto Yuanyujai, who has a mere space ability, wants to imprison me. It's still 100 years too early." Saying that, he raised his hand. Immediately, the majestic black air overflowed, forming a dark door in midair. The center of the gate is a black vortex, like the center of the universe, extremely mysterious. The task given by Lord Qin Emperor has been completed. Please keep your warnings in mind, otherwise the consequences of the outbreak of war will be borne by yourself. With that said, the shadow demon and the sea dragon clashed at the shadow gate. At the same time, and Bai Qingming and the nine-tailed demon fox below also acted immediately, followed by entering the door, and quickly escaped. "Stop chasing, before Juya leaves, I'll give you a big gift. Before being engulfed by the Shadow Gate, the nine-tailed demon fox, Isho, reported each other's claws, and then condensed a chaotic and dark ball. Tailed beast Jade. With a light drink, he hit the dark ball at the chasing captains of death. What? Get out of the way, Omaeda. Captain Broken Bee. In the sound of exclamation, the manic power contained in the black ball burst into red and blue. Boom. A mushroom cloud, slowly rising, once again brought a deadly silence to Seo Lingting. Dream. Blue veins burst out on Yamamoto Yuanyujai's forehead, and his anger could no longer be suppressed. And Aizen Soji, who had been watching the play, pushed his eyes on the bridge of his nose, and a slight smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Interesting, mysterious characters appearing one after another. Who is Emperor Chin behind this? It seems that the plan has to be changed a little. Shadow World. The nine-tailed demon fox sat on the throne, and he returned to his human form to recuperate from his physical exhaustion. Yamamoto Yuanyujai is indeed difficult to deal with. No wonder that Aizen wanted to create a fire extinguisher prince to seal his power. In the Sea Dragon God mode, the Sea Dragon cannot easily kill the opponent, which shows that its combat power is strong. Of course, it doesn't matter how strong it is, as long as it doesn't break the boundary between the God of Death and the Void and enter a higher dimension. The Sea Dragon can also handle it. Even if the Sea Dragon is not good, there is still the main body to go out in person. For the main body, even Bankai's Yamamoto Yuanyujai is not an opponent, and it is not worth worrying about. However, after suffering this big loss, the Soul Society will definitely send the captain level to investigate the situation in this world. The general God of Death is not enough, at least the captain level must lead the team. When that time comes, we will find another opportunity to swallow the soul. Knife. Thinking of this, the nine-tailed demon fox couldn't help rubbing his chin. The question is, how to leave the soul realm. The shadow demon travels through space, unable to traverse the world, and if he wants to leave through this, he can't. God of Death can lead to the world. Let me think about it. Nine-tailed demon fox pondered for a moment, then nodded immediately and said, it's enough to send a phantom body to infiltrate the Death God team. Death is definitely going to the world. If he gets in, he will be able to leave naturally. The question is who to let go. Tailed demon fox can't do it, the Sea Dragon can't do it, either, and by Kingming or Ibaraki Doji can't do it. The Great Demon King of Fear, the Holy Archangel, and the Six Paths bands are not good either. This is the world of corpses and souls, a world where spirit bodies live, preferably spirit bodies. Spirit Night King, glittering gold. With a thought, Night King Arthur suddenly appeared. Dressed in a blue cloak and holding the Sword of Victory pledge, the King of Knights walked out of the shadow space immediately after he appeared. The spiritual power of the corpse and soul world is a great nourishment for the body of heroic spirits. Stepping out and appearing in a street of souls, the King of Knights couldn't help laughing and said, maybe I don't need mysterious power. By absorbing these spiritual powers, I can improve my star rating. At present, the King of Knights is 3-star, and there is still a little distance from 5-star. Anyway, join the Death God team first. By the way, let's study the technology of crossing the gate and master it, so you don't have to be so troublesome. Chapter 0442 _ this person's name. Indescribable. Toro Lingte, headquarters of the 13th team of the Guardian. A dozen captains held a captain's meeting. All the captains participated in this meeting, and at this moment, the atmosphere was a little dignified. Yamamoto Yuanyujai did not change his clothes, and he still wore the tattered Death Tyrant outfit before. He glanced coldly at the people below, and said in a low voice, who will explain, what is this dream? Where did it come from? I don't know. This morning, it suddenly appeared in the sky above Xiaolingbi, and then invaded the vicinity of the 11th Division team building, and then started a big battle. The speaker, wearing a wooden helmet, could not see his face, and his tone was rough and straightforward. He is the captain of the 7th Division, the Inner Court Escort, and this serious invasion incident is within the scope of his responsibility. The first person to fight against the brigade was Captain Zaraki, Aizen said softly. About the information about the brigade, Captain Zaraki, do you know anything? Hearing this, Zaragi Kenpa slammed. He was indeed eager to go and fight against the disaster, but before he warmed up, he was controlled by an Onmyoji. By the time he broke free, Yamamoto Yuanyujai had already fought with Heilong. Thinking of this, he saw everyone looking at him, so he could only say, the first one to appear was the nine-tailed demon fox, a pure energy body. Even if the Zanpakudo slashed him, it couldn't hurt him. Onmyoji, I don't know the name, he masters the strange Onmyoji, possesses the power of enchantment, and can control the god of death. This kind of control, even if we are a captain like us, once we are hit, it will take time to break free. Captain Zaraki, this is not right. Although you have been controlled for a long time, it does not mean that the Onmyoji can definitely control other people. Ichimaru Jin narrowed his eyes. Do you want to fight? Zaraki Kenpachi raised his brows. Just now, I didn't have enough fun, so you can fight with me. Otherwise, I'll give you a discount and let you cut 3 knives for free. Now is not the time for a fight. The captain of the 13th Division coughed and said, "Cough this time is a bit unbelievable. There are such mysterious forces in this world, and they are still monsters. I always feel that there is some conspiracy behind them. Anyway, I think people should be dispatched to investigate the world, at least to find their nest." The captain of the 10th Division was a white-haired boy with a Zanpakudo hanging on his back. Also, the Emperor Qin, in Heilong's mouth is too dangerous. With the strength displayed by that dragon, the leader of Emperor Qin, his combat power, I'm afraid it will be far above the captain's level. Maybe even the captain will be difficult to deal with. That's right. The captain of the 2nd Division, Broken Bee, is a woman with a petite stature. After hearing this, he said in agreement, investigate their old nest first, and leave this kind of thing to us, stealth maneuver. You have to be careful. What they say about the 3 worlds is obviously to turn the world into a world exclusively for them. When we enter the world, it is very likely that the other party will take the initiative to find them. Why? After speaking in a circle, everyone turned to Yamamoto Yuanyujai in the end. Seeing this, Yamamoto Yuanyujai closed his eyes, pondered for a moment, and said, according to the meaning of the Central 46th Room, a special investigation team will be formed to enter the world. This operation will be led by 3 captains and divided into 3 teams. Quote. The captain of the 2nd Division, Broby. The captain of the 3rd Division, Ichimaru Jin. The captain of the 6th Division, Byakuya Kuchiki. The 3 of you will lead the team to set off. Hearing this, everyone nodded. However, Hitsugaya Toshiro, the captain of the 10th Division, couldn't help but stare at Ichimaru Jin. He always felt that this guy was unreliable, and he was still planning something. When dealing with the intruder, he looked like he was releasing water. Disband. Hearing this, many captains left the conference room one after another. The many vice captains who had been waiting outside for a long time immediately greeted their respective captains. Among them, the vice captain of the 6th Division has bright red sky long hair and a white scarf on his head. After approaching Kuchiki Byakuya, he immediately whispered a few words in his ear. Huh. After listening to this, Kuchiki Byakuya couldn't help but be startled, and the expression on his face that has not changed for thousands of years was a little surprised. Really, take him to the 6th Division. Yes. At the same time, Chinyang controlled the King of Knights and came to the 6th Division under the leadership of a god of death. The Soul World is roughly divided into 2 parts. One is the Liuhun Street in the south, east, and northwest, and the other is the Seraiti in the central area. Previously, after absorbing enough spiritual power in Liuhun Street, Chinyang finally transformed his heroic spirit body into a spirit body suitable for activities in this world. It can be said that in essence, he is not much different from the god of death. After completing this, he came to the Qingliu Gate, of Saranje, which is the East Gate, and said directly to the guard, I know some information about those monsters, and then he was brought here. This is done because this is the fastest. In fact, he could also disguise himself as a wandering soul, enter Saraiti by joining the True Spiritual Arts Academy, and then find an opportunity to infiltrate the team of the Shinigami expatriate, but this is time-consuming, and it would take a month to say the least, too slow. Just thinking about it, Qinyang was taken to a secluded Japanese room. When he entered the door, the god of death who led the way couldn't help but explain. Please pay attention to your words later, the captain is one of the 4 nobles in the soul world. I know, the Kuchiki family, the 4 nobles. Qinyang chuckled lightly, making people feel like a spring breeze. I have to say that the King of Knights is still very good. Vivi couldn't help blushing. Go in. Wow. The door was opened, and Qinyang stepped in. As soon as I entered, I saw 2 people. One person is handsome, with long hair, light purple eyes, and a cold expression. He is dressed in white feather weave. On his head and neck, he wears the hair accessories, star pincers, that only the nobles have the right to wear. Silver wind flower yarn, scarf. This person is the captain of the 6th division, Kuchiki Byakuya of the 4 nobles. The other person, with long bright red hair and facial lines on his face, is the vice captain, Renji Asanjing. Seeing Qinyang entering the door, Asanjing Renji was about to speak. Kuchiki Byakuya said directly, You said, do you know the information about the intruder? His voice was indifferent, and it seemed that no matter what happened, his expression would not change. That's right, Qinyang chuckled and said, but I don't know much. I have dealt with them a few times. For example, the sea dragon, you saw this time, the master of the ocean, he is dreaming the strength in China can only be shot in the top 5. Quote. Top 5. Asanjing Renji's pupils shrank, her heart stunned. Kuchiki Byakuya remained calm and said, Who is Emperor Qin? Hearing this, Qinyang's smile faded and his face changed slightly. Shish. This person's name can't be said. It will be perceived by the other party. Chapter 0443_Eisen brought to the ditch. This person's name unspeakable. Qinyang said with a serious face. It's okay to say the name, but don't ask. Even if you ask, don't think about it in your mind. Otherwise, even if you are far away, the other party will be able to perceive it. What? Asanjing Renji looked puzzled. Are you kidding us? It's true. Qinyang shook his head and sighed. If you don't believe me, you can try it. As long as you call out that name and associate it in your mind, the other party can feel it, and with a single thought, a clone can come. Pause, he said sarcastically. Don't think it's a clone, just take it lightly. Was the sea dragon that made a big fuss about Linting strong enough? In terms of combat power, it's not as good as that person's clone. Hearing this, Asanjing Renji changed completely. This incredible thing sounds like a legend. Kuchiki Byakuya Vivi frowned, stared at Qinyang, and said, Who are you? How do you know this? Me, Qinyang chuckled and said, My name is Arthur, and I am the King of Knights. Arthur, foreigner. Asanjing Renji was stunned, looked at Qinyang, and then glanced at Kuchiki Beizai, and then asked instead, Why did you appear in the Soul Realm? The sword on your waist is Zanpo knife. No, this is not a Zanpakudo. Qinyang waved his hands again and again, and found a chair to sit down generously. Speaking of which, you have never even heard of my name. In this world, there are still legends about King Arthur. Not only King Arthur, but also many ancient legends about China and Europe. Your name, Asanjing Renji said unhappily. If you want to talk about it, please hurry up. Don't forget, you are now a character of unknown origin, and we have reasons to imprison and expel you. Don't be so hostile. It's not too embarrassing to admit that you are ignorant. Qinyang smiled. I am King Arthur, the legendary king of Britain. The sword on my waist is the sword of Oath of Victory. As he said that, Qinyang suddenly drew out the sword from his waist, the exquisite sword of kings, exuding a different aura from Zanpakuto. Although I can't carry out 2 stages of liberation like your death gods, I can still do 1 stage of liberation. What? Do you want to take a look? Chinyang laughed Isho and said, don't think that you are the only one in the world with spiritual bodies in Japan. You ask where the dream comes from. Think about it with your head, of course it comes from outside Japan. What did you say? Asanjing Renji was shocked. Don't make a fuss, you smell like a turtle, but the captain here should be calmer. Chinyang said playfully. In short, about the dream, I know, there are only so many Qs. I have dealt with them a few times, it is a very difficult force to deal with. Hearing this, Kuchiki Byakuya, who had not spoken much, said at this moment, you offered us information on your own initiative, what is the return you asked for? Leaving the Soul Realm. Originally, I secretly followed the dreamer, and I was brought here by them accidentally. Now they have run away, but I can't find a way to leave. Chinyang said in a false way. Really, I see. Kuchiki Byakuya's face was calm, and even after listening to some appalling words, he did not change his tone too much. You stay here for now, Asanjing, and entertain the guests. With that said, he stepped out of the room. Seeing this, Asanjing Riansi walked up to Chinyang like a bodyguard, please stay here for a while. No problem. Chinyang poured the tea on his own and took a sip with a relaxed face. You gods of death, your fighting power is really not that good, but you are just a dreamy, ocean master, which forced you to be so embarrassed, really miserable. Hearing this, Asanjing Renji's face darkened, because the other party just informed some information, he also failed to attack. King Arthur, we will only believe half of what you just said. Your identity is very suspicious. Please be quiet for a while now. Sympathy for you. Chinyang couldn't help shaking his head and said to himself, Dream is not only the ruler of the ocean, but also the ruler of yin and yang, the ruler of the sky, the ruler of the earth, etc. Among them, the ruler of yin and yang, I have played against him, that guy is much stronger than the sea dragon. Moreover, above the dominant cadres, there is also an emperor. They are eyeing the present world, and you will have headaches in the future. Ha 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 ha. Quote. Asanjing Renji's face was complicated. He didn't know if this was true or not, but the possibility was very high. But at the same time, he didn't dare to believe it, and now he just waited for Captain Kuchiki's judgment. At this moment, Kuchiki Byakuya went to the first team to talk with the chief captain, and the result will be revealed soon. There will also be a corresponding decision on how to deal with this King Arthur in front of him. The house fell silent. Chinyang was not in a hurry at all, sitting there calmly, drinking tea from the soul realm, and at the same time part of his mind was placed somewhere above the door frame. There, a tiny fly docked. It was inconspicuous at all. If it weren't for Chinyang's keen perception, it would be extremely difficult to find it. At least Kuchiki Byakuya and Asanjing Renji didn't know the whole process. This is a special kind of monitor. As for who the owner of the monitor is, Chinyang doesn't have to think about it, he can guess it right away. Aizen, did he hear all the conversations here? There are a lot of words in the previous words, that is, to be heard by Aizen. Next, what will this guy's plan do? Is it still the same way of capturing Bengyu and betraying the Soul Society? Unfortunately, the current Zai Palace is under my control. Chinyang was full of interest and looked forward to how Aizen would deal with this chaos. At the same time, somewhere in the Gote 13 team, in a dark room, a man wearing flat-rimmed glasses sat in front of a stack of monitors, watching quietly. Captain Aizen, this man named Arthur, is what he said true? Behind him, a dark-skinned man whispered. Half-truth. Aizen Vivi Isho said, it's easiest to succeed when you lie. At least, Arthur must know more about dreams than he said. Moreover, this person also it is related to the world outside Japan. If there is an opportunity, you can try to contact it. Quote. The world here does not refer to the present 2.2 world, but refers to the supernatural world where spirit bodies exist, similar to the world of corpses and souls. Before, Eisen didn't know much about it, but now King Arthur appeared, which made him quite curious. Interesting, in a short period of time, 3 forces suddenly appeared. Lan Ran's voice was full of magnetism and said, "Mysterious people in Zai Palace, fantasy monsters, King Arthur, these people have all appeared in the past few days. Japan, what is it that attracts them?" Rao is Lan Ran's wisdom as a demon, and can play with linting in applause. At this moment, Qin Yang's repeated actions have also brought him into the ditch. Beyond Japan, there are other forces similar to Siringte. From the name, Qin, it can be judged that this guy is probably from China, and Arthur is from Europe. Eisen Vivi concentrated and secretly said, "This world is far more interesting than what I knew in the past." Chapter 0444-18 Changes Snow Saint. For 7 days in a row, Qin Yang was confined to the 6th Division's quarters, accompanied by the Vice Captain Renji Asanjing. It was called entertaining guests, but it was actually surveillance. However, Qin Yang didn't care at all. He used this time to continue to absorb the spirits of the corpse soul world and transform his own spiritual body. Qin Yang had a hunch that if he gave him another period of time, he could rely on cultivation and directly let the illusory body of the King of Knights break through 3 stars, reach 4 stars, or even 5 stars. In the past 7 days, Xia Lingting has been rebuilding. The god of death is extremely efficient. In just 7 days, most of the damage caused by the war has been restored to its original state. Finally, on the evening of the 7th day, Kuchiki Byakuya found him and said that he was going to the world that night. At 12 o'clock in the middle of the night, there is a hill somewhere in the Saranje. The 2nd Division, 3rd Division, and 6th Division, including the captain and vice captain, had a total of 21 people. Of course, including Qin Yang, there were 22 people. Seeing Kuchiki Byakuya with an unfamiliar face, the leader of the 2nd Division, Shibi, couldn't help but ask, "Who is this guy?" "Not the god of death." It can be seen at a glance that Qin Yang is definitely not a god of death, and the fluctuation of spiritual power on his body is completely different from the spiritual pressure of a god of death. In this regard, Kuchiki Byakuya said nothing. 15 seemed too lazy to answer. Qin Yang hugged Shang in both hands and couldn't help saying, "Little girl, this guy is really rude. I'm Arthur, you can call me King Arthur, King of Knights." "Who are you calling a little girl?" Broken Bee's brows flashed with anger. It is very stupid to judge the age of death by appearance. The current captain level Reaper, the youngest is Hitsugaya Toshiro, the captain of the 10th Division. He looks like a teenager, but his age is also over 100 years old, not to mention her. Qin Yang raised his eyebrows, not interested in talking. He played the legendary King Arthur in this world. In terms of age, he was probably nearly 2,000 years old, almost as old as the history of the Gotei 13th team. Calling the other party a little girl was no problem at all. At this moment, Ichimaru Jin squinted and smiled and said, "Since it's the person brought by the captain of the 6th Division, there must be no problem. Next, let's go to the world, but don't quarrel with each other. Who knows how the group of monsters on the opposite side will welcome you." Us. Hearing this, Kuchiki Byakuya glanced at him, and then gestured to Asane Renji. "Captain Broken Bee, Captain Ichimaru. Let's go first." Asanjing Renji said in a low voice, then took out the Zanpakudo, inserted it into the front door of the piercing world, and while turning the handle of the knife, he said softly, "Open." Click, click, click. 3 consecutive Japanese-style sliding doors opened to the sides, revealing the world behind the gate. Seeing this, Kuchiki Byakuya took the first step, and then Qin Yang followed Asanjing Renji in. CM_. Before entering the door, he looked at Broken Bee jokingly and said, "Little girl, this king is young, and he is your grandfather's grandfather's grandfather. When you talk to old people, you have to be respectful." You. Tilda. Broken Bee's eyes spit fire, but saw that 7 or 8 members of the 6th Division had disappeared from the door. Immediately, she angrily said to a fat man beside her, "Omaeda, who is that guy?" "How do I know, Captain Broken Bee?" The fat man curled his lips. "Don't get mad at me." However, as soon as he finished speaking, Broken Bee kicked him in the socket of his knee and kicked him to his knees. Trash. Ichimaru Yin put both hands in the sleeves, and watched Shin-young and the others leave with a smile on his face. This time, the three teams, although they said they were going to explore the Dream Nest, were actually only the second team. In addition to investigating the dream, by the way, his main task is to find a way to go to the Void Night Palace. In addition to the superficial task, Kuchiki Gikuya has a more important task, which is to arrest Kuchiki Rukia. In the present world, Kuzucho, a corner of the city, Urahara store. In the store, Urahara Kazuki was flipping through some ancient documents. His face was frowning, obviously confused. At this moment, a figure of Zhao Xiao jumped slightly and jumped onto the table with a black paw, holding down the information. Still investigating, dream. It was a black cat. At this moment, it was speaking in a very low voice. Well, I analyzed the existing information and found some information about Ibaraki Doji. It was suspected that it existed in the past, but another shadow demon, I have never heard of it. Urahara Kazuki touched his chin and muttered, "They absorbed my Zanpakuto, but returned the sword to me." What did they do? Judging from the traces left, it was a moment when some kind of force engulfed the blade. The blade body can't bear it directly, and it collapses. Really? The black cat's ears moved, suddenly raised his head, and looked somewhere outside the window. Huh. Something is coming. The spiritual power fluctuations through the gate, I'll take a look. Saying that, the black cat jumped out of the house, and after a few wiggles, it was already on the roof, and quickly moved in the direction of the spiritual power fluctuations. Not to mention the current situation, the virtual circle, the virtual night palace. A week later, 10 blades handed in more than 600 Daxu again. Shin-young took the time to purify them all, and obtained 6 illusion jade, plus the previous 4, it has reached 10. At this moment, sitting in the quiet palace, Shin-young was very satisfied with these magic jades. There are other interesting uses for the mysterious power crystals made by these Bengyu. He whispered to himself. However, now that the mandatory transformation period is over, you can try to start a new transformation. Thinking like this, he immediately absorbed a magic jade. In fact, one magic jade can start a new transformation, but Shin-young still increased the number to 3. Immediately, the 3 phantom jades turned into smoke and dissipated in the palm of their hands, and an incomparably pure and mysterious power poured into the body. Shin-young only felt that all the cells in his body were excited, as if he was jubilant. And the next moment, it suddenly became cold. As if even his soul was cooling down, Shin-young saw that his body began to change from the inside out. As if the ice and snow are melting, the whole person is disintegrating. Shin-young was stunned for a moment, and then he felt a huge demonic force appearing in his body. This transformation is not an animal, let alone a human being, but a snow lotus flower. His body disintegrated and turned into a pool of ice and snow, and in the snow, a white and crystal clear snow lotus was quietly born. At the same time, information about the new transformation emerged in Shin-young's mind. The 18th change. Snow Sage Ice Snow Lotus Monster. Knowing this, Shin-young couldn't help being taken aback. This is a transformation from a novel. A big monster of a completely different rank from Ibaraki Doji. Even the title contains the word, holy, which shows its high level. Thinking like this, I saw that the snow lotus flashed in the ice and snow, and instantly turned into a handsome man. This is the new transformation. Shin-young felt it for a moment, and couldn't help but whisper, what a strong transformation. I'm afraid that after 5 stars, it will surpass Halong, far more. Chapter 0445-Ice and Snow. Shin-young sorted out the information about the new transformation. 18th change. Snow Saint Ice Snow Lotus Monster. Star rating. Ability 1. Body of Ice and Snow. Ability 2, Snow Wind. The so-called Ability 1, the Body of Ice and Snow. This is the basic ability, which means that the Snow Saint is transformed by the Ice and Snow Lotus. The second ability, Chiffon, is the ability to control ice and snow, and its power can even freeze and freeze space. It's also 2-star. I'm afraid it's 5 Ibaraki Doji, and they won't be able to withstand a snowstorm. Qin Yang murmured, and the gap in demon power is even bigger, basically more than 5 times the gap. In terms of combat power, the 2-star Shui Sheng has far more combat power than the 3-star Sea Dragon. As expected of a transformation from the world of novels, being able to call the word saint, I am afraid that in that world, he is also a top character in the world. Qin Yang nodded with satisfaction. He just needed the transformation of the monster type, and the appearance of Shui Sheng just made up for it. In the world of the God of Death, the phantoms dispatched by dreams are basically dominated by monsters, and among the current dominant cadres, except for the Sea Dragon, it is not suitable for the rest to call themselves monsters. There are still 7 magic jades left. Let's rise to the stars. Qin Yang immediately decided to upgrade the star rating. Anyway, the magic jade is easy to obtain and completely affordable. After a while, he absorbed 5 magic jade and raised Shui Sheng to 3 stars. 18th change. Snow Saint, Ice Snow Lotus Monster. Star rating. Ability 1, Body of Ice and Snow. Ability 2, Snow Wind. Ability 3, Frozen Sacred Lotus. The newly emerged ability is Ice Sacred Lotus, which is the ability to condense one's own demonic power into the body's ice and snow lotus, thereby detonating it. It is Shui Sage's signature move. There is no actual combat, so it is difficult to evaluate the specific power, but there is no problem in turning Kakuza Town into a world of ice and snow in an instant. Very good. The combat power of the 3-star is stronger. It is comparable to the 4-star Sea Dragon, and even close to the level of the 5-star Sea Dragon. Qin Yang nodded, his heart moved, and he secretly said, the King of Knights has returned to the world, just to do the friendship of landlords. With a thought, the illusion world above his head descended, and Shui Sheng turned into a wisp of snow wind and quickly submerged into it. Afterwards, the phantom body Blue Dye continued to stay in the virtual night palace, sitting on the stone bench, playing with the phantom jade, and studying its structure. In the present world, Empty Seat Town, Empty Seat Hanmachi, close to the direction of the river. In the middle of a road, a classical door appeared out of thin air. The door opened, and several people walked out of it. ~@C. In this world, Asanjing Renji took a deep breath. Thin aura, Captain Kuchiki, what are we going to do next? FV_P. I don't care what you do, thank you for sending me out of the soul realm. Qin Yang moved his muscles and bones, waved his hands, and said, Great Noble, goodbye. Wait. Kuchiki Byakuya spoke calmly, blocking Qin Yang's way. Huh. Qin Yang raised his eyebrows and looked directly at each other. I know you're hiding a part of the fantasy monster. I don't ask you to say it, and even if you say it, we won't fully believe it. Kuchiki Byakuya said indifferently, however, if there is witness information, I hope you can contact us. Okay. Qin Yang Isho, however, I don't recommend you to do this. Just a few of you, it's not enough to jam the teeth of that group of monsters. After he finished speaking, he was too lazy to say anything, flashed away, and quickly disappeared. Captain Kuchiki, can this guy be trusted? Renji Asanjing said solemnly. I have been monitoring him during this time, and he knows it, but he doesn't care at all, and cultivates in front of me. His spiritual power is very strong. It's special, but after absorbing the spirits of the soul realm, the body has undergone unknown changes, and it feels like it's getting stronger at a very fast speed. Not to be trusted. Kuchiki Byakuya stared in the direction of Qin Yang's disappearance. After a while, he turned and left. The captain's judgment, this person should have other purposes, but he can communicate and use them. Hearing this, Asanjing Renji Vivi was startled. then suddenly, through the gate. Through the gate, created by the god of death, the passage between the world and the world of corpses is like a tunnel through the mountain in the world. Chinyang walked through the gate, and the Technology Development Bureau must have put some kind of tracker on the other side, or something. It's no wonder that the commander-in-chief sent him out of the soul realm easily. Asanjing Renji thought to himself, it seems that the above has other plans. Let's go. This time, in addition to the fantasy monster, we also need to find Rukia Kuchiki. 7 days ago, her communication was cut off and she lost contact. He deliberately opened the gate to Kakuza town because Kuchiki Rukia was the god of death stationed in Kakuza town. Hearing this, Asanjing Renji's expression tightened, and she felt a little anxious in her heart. He and Kuchiki Rukia are old acquaintances, and they are in the same class and have a good relationship. Hopefully nothing will happen. Just as I was thinking, at this moment, the air suddenly became cold, and a cold wind blew in the middle of the night. Asanjing Renji sighed inwardly, subconsciously posing a defensive posture. The next moment, between heaven and earth, the wind and snow fluttered. The whole night turned into a white snow day. The cold wind blew the bones, and along with the cold wind, there was a cold voice. I warned you just now that you stepped into the world without permission, and you don't pay attention to what I said. Byakuya Kuchiki frowned and Vivi trembled a little in his heart. He could clearly hear the voice, but he couldn't tell where the other party was. His eyes swept left and right, and the next moment, he was locked in front of him. There, in the snow fog, a figure slowly walked over. The man was wearing a snow-white ancient robe, like a world-class snow lotus, and he had a unique temperament. Come so fast, Kuchiki Byakuya secretly said inwardly, but his face remained calm. Are you a fantasy monster? Good evening. Zusheng carried his hands on his back, surrounded by snowflakes, all the gods of death. Hearing this, Asanjing Renji's heart moved, and she immediately shouted, a week ago, we lost contact with a death god. Did you do it? A week ago. Shui Sheng raised his eyebrows slightly. The other party was referring to Rukia Kuchiki. A week ago, he did knock the girl unconscious and threw it by the river, but if he said that he lost contact, it must have nothing to do with him. I don't know. Zusheng is like a worldly immortal, with an ethereal tone. Halong has warned you before, but you don't know how to advance or retreat, so don't blame me. During the speech, the snow wind around him danced wildly, and instantly enveloped everyone. This is like an enchantment that traps everyone. Forgot to introduce myself. I am the dreamy, ice and snow master, the saint in the lotus, the snow saint. Dominant class. In an instant, Kuchiki Byakuya couldn't help but change his color. Through the mouth of the King of Knights, they have already understood what the Dream Master level means. That is the super combat power equivalent to the captain. At the same time, a few kilometers away, at the top of a spire, a black cat stared at the snow-covered land in the distance. Big Monster Zusheng, Master. Chapter 0446 You should be this saint's pet. Big Monster Zusheng, Master. On the top of the iron tower, the black cat sat upright, with a pair of orange, yellow and gem-like eyes, emitting a faint blue light. With ultra-distance vision, it can see everything even thousands of meters away. The appearance of the big monster, Shui Sheng, can't help but shake his heart. He didn't notice how the other party appeared at all. When he realized it, it was already full of snow and fog, and the person suddenly appeared. Where did this organization come from? It seems to have a grudge with the Soul Society. It can't hear specific conversations, but it can barely discern the general content of the conversation through lip language. Not to mention a small observer, in the snow wind, there were several people on the death side, and suddenly pulled out the Zanpakuto and assumed a fighting stance. The experience of Seo Lingting a week ago is still vivid in his mind, and no one dares to be careless in the face of the master class. Shui Sheng put his hands on his back and said calmly, "Go back, this time I can forgive your mistakes. This world is no longer the back garden of your soul world." What a joke. Asanjing Renji gritted his teeth and shouted, "Captain, let me test him." As he spoke, he stroked the blade with his left hand while whispering, "Roar, Shawaimaru." In an instant, his spiritual pressure doubled, and the blade turned into a snake-bellied sword, with 6 segments and 7 backs, each with a raised blade that was double-edged. The next moment, Asanjing Renji slashed a sword towards Shui Sheng. There seemed to be a roar of snakes and baboons, and the Reiatsu expanded outwards, and at the same time, the Zanpakuto quickly stretched and attacked Zhu Sheng's chest and abdomen. "It's too arrogant to bark at me if you don't even know Bankai." In the face of this blow, Shui Sheng raised his hand slightly, and suddenly a vortex of snow wind swirled in the palm of his hand, like a white fog impacting, and it suddenly hit. Shui Maru's assault was not close, and the moment it encountered the snow wind, it was immediately blown away, but the snow wind was castrated unabated, directly engulfing Asanjing Renji, and blowing a distance of hundreds of meters in one breath. Boom! Asanjing Renji snorted. The whole person directly broke a street lamp, and couldn't stand up for a long time. And at this moment, Kuchiki Byakuya suddenly moved. The ultra-high-speed Shunpo movement disappeared from Shui Sheng's field of vision in an instant. Flash flower. In the distance, Renji Asanjing's expression condensed, and he secretly said, "This is Captain Kuchiki's special move, a special Shunpo with a spin. Detour behind the opponent's back in an instant, and use a stab to kill the opponent's lethal part." One place. Quote. Even as the vice-captain, Renji Asanjing could only see a slight afterimage. However, for Shui Sheng, no matter how fast his opponent is, he cannot escape his perception in his snow field. In terms of speed, it's already fast. Shui Sheng whispered softly, while Vivi turned sideways and stretched out 2 fingers. Kuchiki Byakuya's pupils shrank. He instantly circled behind the target and launched a blow from the blind spot, but the opponent seemed to be prepared. At this moment, a sword stabbed V from the back and aimed at the opponent's heart. V. Carrot. However, as soon as this sword was shot, it was lightly pinched by 2 fingers, and it was no longer difficult to get close. M. However, simply being fast is meaningless. No matter how fast you are, you can't be faster than Yukikaze's tracking. Zhu Sheng's eyes narrowed, and in an instant, a huge demonic force erupted from his body, and the demonic force turned into snow, blowing towards Kuchiki Byakuya at close range. Dangerous wind. Kuchiki Byakuya keenly sensed the crisis, and immediately gave up the Zanpakuto and chose to retreat. Call. The whistling snow wind engulfed half of the street at once, and the surrounding temperature dropped to dozens of degrees below zero. Just standing in this area made everyone tremble, and had to use spiritual power to resist the cold current. Don't you even want your own Zanpakuto? Shui Sheng held the blade and couldn't help shaking his head. It's decisive enough. I'll give it to you if you want. Kuchiki Byakuya's expression did not change, and he opened a distance of dozens of meters in an instant. You monsters, what is the purpose of you wanting to occupy the world? Who knows? Snow Saint Vivi Isho said, if you can beat me, I can consider telling you. Really? Byakuya Kuchiki closed his eyes and opened them slowly after a while. He adjusted his state, and his spiritual power began to soar. Reaper's Zanpakuto is not a simple weapon. Scatter, Senbon Sakura. This is the Shikai language. At the moment he uttered it, the blade in Qin Yang's hand instantly disintegrated, as if the cherry blossoms were scattered. The blade disappeared and turned into snowflakes fluttering in the sky. Sakura-colored small blades covered Shui Sheng's body, and then strangled together. Seeing this, Shui Sheng remained calm, his eyes narrowed, and in an instant, a gust of snow was also set off around him. The countless snowflakes fluttering in the wind, each of which is a complete 6-flower crystal, but these crystals are extremely sharp, similar to Kuchiki Byakuya's cherry blossom blade. I know your abilities very well. Zhu Sheng said calmly. However, compared to my hundreds of millions of snowflake blades, the thousands of cherry blossom blades are not worth mentioning. In midair, the color of cherry blossoms and the color of snowflakes handed over to each other, and in just one encounter, the thousands of cherry blossom blades controlled by Byakuya Kuchiki were all shot down. What? Kuchiki Byakuya's pupils shrank, and he thought in shock, an ability similar to mine. The next moment, the overwhelming snow wind, entrained in the immeasurable six-flower crystal, like countless darts, flocked towards Kuchiki Byakuya. It's over, Reaper. Such a large-scale attack is only fast, but it is difficult to dodge. At the critical moment, Kuchiki Byakuya immediately gave up singing. The 81 boundaries, breaking the space. An invisible blocking wall suddenly appeared, blocking it before the snow wind. After the whistling snow wind hit the air, Going's posture was stunned, but number 81's binding path could only defend for 5 seconds, and the next moment, it shattered. Bad. Kuchiki Byakuya's eyes widened, and a piece of white snow filled his field of vision, and then, the incalculable six-flower blade completely engulfed it. Captain Deadwood. At the same time, thousands of meters away, above the Iron Tower, the Black Cat was equally astonished. What a powerful monster! He easily defeated Byakuya Kuchiki. Is this the power of the master class? It couldn't help muttering. However, the next moment, it exploded. A voice from behind him made his hair stand on end. Dominion. I don't remember when I used the power of the Dominion, Kitty. Not good. The Black Cat's heart beat faster and immediately wanted to dodge. However, its movements were not as fast as Shifeng. A white palm gently squeezed the back of its neck and lifted it abruptly. At the same time, the Black Cat only felt that the space around him was frozen and solidified, and he couldn't move at all. What? It exclaimed in shock. What ability is this? As soon as the voice fell, it was embraced by the person behind him. Zusheng stroked the Black Cat's soft fur gently, and said with a chuckle, I caught a cat by the way, but it's still a female cat. You, just be this saint's pet for the time being. Who wants to be your pet? The Black Cat grinned and stared viciously at this unbelievably handsome man. What the hell, it was actually blocked in space, and it couldn't even move, except for its eyes. Who are you? Who are you? Chapter 0447 _ The Blossoming Frozen Lotus. You, who are you? The Black Cat grinned. It was sure that it wasn't that it was careless, that it didn't notice that the other party was approaching, it just appeared suddenly, and it didn't even have a breath. No, to be precise, it was never expected to be discovered. Thousands of meters away, Shui Sheng is still fighting against Kuchiki Byakuya's death. Who is holding it now? It's the clone who is fighting. It secretly said, the one here is the main body. What it was thinking, Snow Saint Vivi Isho said, half guess. To be precise, they are all clones. The main body is a snow lotus, and it is impossible to expose it. That is the only weakness of Shui Sheng. Black Cat was startled. Do you still have the ability to read minds? No, it's just that what's on your mind is written on your face. Shui Sheng stroked his black hair and teased the other party's whiskers. You little female cat, hiding and peeping, is really a bad interest. Who's a female cat? I'm a male. The Black Cat roared warningly in his throat. Its voice was a low middle-aged male voice. Really? Let me see. Shui Sheng pondered Isho, when he was about to turn the Black Cat over, belly up, and then reached out and touched the lower part of the other's belly. Wait. Black Cat's hair stood upright, and he felt goosebumps all over his body. Perverted monster. How can you see that this person is a master, so unscrupulous? The Black Cat was depressed, thinking about how to escape from the magic catch. Don't even think about running away, just be this saint's pet. Shui Sheng didn't continue, and stopped, although he knew very well that this Black Cat was a beautiful woman, but he didn't bother to do such things as lewd, he just teased the other party before. You really have the ability to read minds. The Black Cat is desperate. Who is this person? Huh. Suddenly, Shui Sheng Vivi raised his head and looked into the distance. Number 81 bound road failed to stop Shifeng, Kuchiki Byakuya was swallowed by hundreds of millions of six-flower crystals. However, in the perception at this moment, the other party's Reiatsu did not weaken. Dodged. Shui Sheng raised his eyebrows, immediately hugged the black cat and stepped out, surrounded by snow and wind, spanning a distance of hundreds of meters in an instant. After such a few steps, they have come to the center of the battlefield. The wind and snow gradually dissipated, and I saw Byakuya, who was swallowed up, with a large shield of cherry blossoms in front of him. At this moment, the cherry blossoms spread out, revealing Byakuya Kuchiki behind him. Bankai Senbon Sakura Kujiyoshi. There was a lot of blood on his face, and it was obvious that Bankai was not completely protected from the snow and wind. So, at the last moment, Bankai was used. Zusheng nodded clearly, his thoughts moved, and immediately, an avatar on his side, like snowflakes, slowly dissipated and merged into his body. It is indeed a captain with rich combat experience. Senbon Sakura is only a few thousand cherry blossom blades, but after Bankai, its blades will increase geometrically, reaching a scale of hundreds of millions. Although it is still not as good as Shifeng's six-flower crystal, it can be done to prevent part of it. I didn't expect that even Bankai couldn't completely defend against it. Are all your dream masters so strong? His tone was calm, and the shield of cherry blossoms in front of him dispersed. At this time, the black cat saw that Kuchiki Byakuya's right arm was already bleeding. He. Shui Sheng touched the black cat's head and chuckled. What gave you the illusion that I use the power of the master? As he spoke, his figure was light, and the power of the snow wind swirled around his body, slowly holding him up. Since you say that, let's let you see the power of the master class. Zusheng flew to a height of 100 meters, and at the same time as he spoke, Vivi stretched out his right palm. I saw that in the palm of his hand, the demon power was like a vortex, rapidly gathering, and its energy intensity reached an extremely terrifying level in just a short moment. This is... Kuchiki Byakuya's pupils shrank, and his mind was shaken. The power condensed in that palm has surpassed the spiritual power of his peak period, and it is still improving. The white light shone, and the demon power raged. The thing condensed between the hands of the snow sage gradually took shape. It was a beautiful lotus, and it seemed to bloom in the world of ice and snow. The next moment, Shui Sheng threw it away. The slowly turning lotus flower slowly fell towards the ground. Holy ice lotus. All the sights are intoxicating, at least the black cat in the arms of Shui Sheng was stunned by the next scene. The falling ice and snow lotus flower. At the moment of landing, the world seems to freeze. Time and airborne stagnated at a certain moment, and then, the snow lotus exploded and turned into crystal dust in the sky. Countless tiny particles flew out, and then saw the birth of an incalculable snow lotus. That is the process of blooming, and every snow lotus bloom solidifies a space. In the continuous blooming, the solidification of space spreads rapidly at a speed visible to the naked eye. In almost a few seconds, the entire vacant seat of Hanmachi fell into complete silence. The light from the street lamps, the starlight from the sky, the shadows behind people, the water waves of the river, everything that actually existed in this space, was completely frozen. And on this dead land, a huge ice and snow holy lotus is proudly enlightened. This is the power of the master class, death. Shui Sheng calmly stared down and whispered softly in his mouth. On the dimly lit street, including Byakuya Kuchiki, everyone maintained a frozen expression, and even a finger was difficult to move. Even their consciousness was frozen at the moment when the snow lotus bloomed. The black cat opened his mouth blankly and murmured, "What kind of power is this? Is this really a monster?" The captain-level reaper, in front of such a big monster, is not worth mentioning at all, and he is easily defeated, as if he does not even have the strength to resist. The two monsters that Kazuki Urahara encountered a week ago were completely different from the Snow Saint in front of him. What's even more terrifying is that such a character, in a dream, is just a master. Means, on top of it, there are more terrifying and powerful enemies. At this moment, the black cat fell into a sluggishness. Zusheng looked down at the black cat in his arms and chuckled, "How? Are you intoxicated by this beauty?" However, this blow is only half the power. In order to protect this important city, I bet the strength is restrained. Isn't this full? The black cat opened his mouth and was completely speechless. What are these terrifying monsters trying to do? At this moment, the black cat has made a new decision. Rather than running away, it has to lurk beside this person, at least to figure out the purpose of this group of people. As if seeing its thoughts, Shui Sheng retracted his gaze and whispered in a voice that only he could hear, "Then, it's time for a good show." Chapter 0448_come yet. At the moment when the sacred ice lotus bloomed, everything that actually existed in the empty seat of Hanmachi was frozen. Kuchiki Byakuya's wound, blood flow stopped, dripping blood, hovering in midair. Of course, it's not really time still, or space forbidden, it's just that everything becomes extremely slow. Maybe it would take hours for this drop of blood to fall on the ground. This is the world after the frozen sacred lotus blooms. Kuchiki Byakuya's expression froze at the moment when the snow lotus bloomed, and the speed of the brain's thought transmission dropped thousands of times. Usually, it only takes 0.02 seconds to give birth to an idea. At this moment, a new idea emerges, and the time it takes is a long 1.5 minutes. What do you want to do with them? After a moment of silence, the black cat couldn't help but ask. Not much. Shui Sheng glanced at it and said calmly, "Compared to this, someone is here." People. The black cat's heart froze, and immediately let go of the perception, only to find that a breath was approaching here at an extremely fast speed of 15 degrees. Unfamiliar atmosphere, and, what a fast-moving speed. It said in surprise. When the voice fell, a golden figure suddenly appeared in front of Kuchiki Byakuya. It's him. The black cat was stunned. The person who appeared was the blonde man who walked out of the gate with the death god. Arthur. Shui Sheng's face was calm. While stroking the black cat, he said loudly, "Night King. I knew it would turn out like this." The King of Knights grabbed Kuchiki Byakuya's collar, and at the same time a spiritual energy poured into the opponent's body. The golden spiritual power nourishes the soul. Kuchiki Byakuya's frozen expression quickly melted away. Kuchiki Byakuya looked surprised when he saw Arthur's appearance. Arthur ignored him, but looked at Shui Sheng and said solemnly, "I will stop you." "What can you do alone?" Shui Sheng chuckled lightly. "Did you come here on purpose to save a death god? Then don't leave." Saying that, Shui Sheng raised his hand, and suddenly the wind and snow danced wildly. Seeing this, King Arthur's face froze, and he immediately threw the Zanpakuto that snatched Kuchiki Byakuya. "Let's go." Saying that, King Arthur grabbed Byakuya Kuchiki and quickly retreated and fled. "My sword." Byakuya Kuchiki subconsciously wanted to retrieve the Zanpakuto. "Idiot, do you want Zanpakuto, or do you want your life? Open the gate of traversal." King Arthur scolded and moved faster and faster. And Zusheng, seeing the instant the Zanpakuto was thrown, immediately gave up the pursuit, but stretched out his hand, curled the snow, and rolled the Senbon Sakura over. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Kuchiki Byakuya and King Arthur immediately escaped into the piercing gate and disappeared in a blink of an eye. Escaped. The black cat blinked, unable to keep up with the rhythm. Who is that person? King Arthur, the legendary king of Britain. Snow Saint held Senbon Sakura and nodded in satisfaction. The King of Knights needs the spiritual power of the Soul realm. With this drama, he can return to the Soul realm and continue to become stronger. By the way, he can also pass on false information. And Kuchiki Byakuya's Zanpakuto, of course, is a trophy, and can be absorbed later. However, the black cat couldn't calm down at all, and said in shock, "King Arthur of Britain, isn't that a person from 2000 years ago?" "What is this?" Shui Sheng shook his head and said, "There was a hero king, Gilgamesh, who was 4000 years ago." 4000 years ago, that was an epic legend, the era of the second millennium BC. The black cat felt that his worldview had collapsed, but he didn't think the other party would make such a foolish joke. Thinking of this, it took a deep breath and said, "What is your purpose? This important city?" Earlier, Shui Sheng did say, "In order to protect this important city." He mere pets, why are there so many problems? Shui Sheng tugged at the black cat's face, but looked at Asanjing Ren and the others on the street. These gods of death catch them first. Go through the gate, break the boundary. Kuchiki Byakuya couldn't help gasping for breath. He experienced snow lotus blooming before, and even his thinking and consciousness were frozen. Although he was quickly rescued by King Arthur, he still couldn't return to normal at this moment. However, what he didn't know was that it wasn't King Arthur's spiritual power that saved him, but Shui Sheng's initiative to cancel the effect. He never dreamed that the two sides were a gang. "I said earlier, you three-legged cats are not enough for those monsters." King Arthur shook his head again and again, and said sympathetically, "Now I have lost my wife and lost my army." Kuchiki Byakuya glanced at him and said solemnly, "What do you mean by throwing out my Zanpakuto?" "Of course we have time to escape." King Arthur gave him a disdainful look. "Although I don't know why, those monsters are very interested in your Zanpakuto." Hearing this, Kuchiki Byakuya was silent for a while. "What a strong monster, the snow lotus blooming just now. I'm afraid no one can stop it except the captain." He thought of his vice-captain and several team members, but unfortunately the situation was urgent and it was too late to save them. "Go back to the Soul Realm first." With a light breath, Kuchiki Byakuya regained his composure and walked forward. "You said, we'll stop you. Just now, do you really know something?" "It's okay to tell you now." King Arthur sighed and said, "The city of Kuza Town is a spiritual land. You gods of death should also know about this. Dreamy monsters want to absorb this spiritual land. As for why, it is unknown, but there is no doubt about it. Once the heavy spirit is absorbed, the city will also be blasted to ashes by the huge energy in an instant." Quote. Hearing this, Kuchiki Byakuya's expression changed. If this is the case, then it is not a disaster of the destruction of a city. The consequences, I am afraid, are much more terrible than what King Arthur said. The commander-in-chief must be informed as soon as possible. Thinking of this, Kuchiki Byakuya did not dare to delay for a moment, and even the loss of Zanpakuto had already been forgotten. Seeing this, King Arthur chuckled and immediately followed. "The reason why it takes so much effort is to defeat the god of death, save people, and tell a truth that seems false, all for the sake of the origin of the world. Of course, where the origin of the world is, this is still unknown, but the land of heavy spirituality in Kakuzucho is indeed very important. Now that a false information is leaked, the Soul Society will continue to guard and give away people's heads, and then continue to contribute Zanpakuto. Moreover, Qinyang is very suspicious that the origin of this world is likely to be above the Soul Realm, where the Spirit King lives. To reach that place, this piece of heavy spirit land is needed. However, this is not in a hurry. Let's collect enough mysterious power first." Just as Shui Sheng repelled the god of death, another team of god of death. The members of the 3rd Division of the 13th Team of the Gote also arrived in this world, but they encountered a disaster in the boundary. Captain Ichimaru Jin, in order to protect the rest of the Shinigami, was lost in the boundary. However, what they didn't know was that Ichimaru Jin, who should have been lost in the broken world, came to the virtual circle without everyone noticing. At the same time, the Void Knight Palace. As if feeling something in his heart, Mianthan Aizen looked up at the sky. "Is it coming? Chapter 0449 _ You can't kill him. Is it coming?" Illusory Lanyan stared at the sky, and within the perception of letting go, outside the Zai Palace, a strange spiritual pressure appeared. "I came to the door in a grand manner, with no intention of hiding at all. It's Ichimaru Jin." Huan Shenlan Ran chuckled lightly, put away Huan Yu, and immediately walked towards the main hall. At the same time, outside the majestic and seemingly lonely Zai Palace, a silver-haired man dressed as Captain Yori stood in front of the main entrance. "I've already come here." Still no response. Ichimaru Jin squinted, and Vivi opened a gap. Out of sight, the main entrance slowly opened, and a figure walked out slowly. "Lord Ichimaru." Ulquiorra's tone was calm. Vivi bowed and said, "Lord Aizen is waiting for you in the main hall, please come with me." In Zai Palace, Aizen's death god is above the 10 blades. This has nothing to do with strength, it is simply a question of status. Hearing this, Ichimaru Jin Isho stepped forward and followed. "Aizen, sir," he thought to himself, knowing that there are two, Aizen, Ulquiorra is willing to call this mysterious person Aizen-sama, it seems to be a very dangerous guy. Quote. The two entered the interior of the Zai Palace one after the other. It didn't take long before he came to the discussion hall, and after Ichimaru Jin entered, Ulquiorra retired and left. Boom. The door was closed, and there were only 2 people left in the empty hall. Ichimaru Jin Vivi raised his head and looked at this familiar hall and the familiar person sitting on the throne on the platform several meters high in the hall. "It's astonishing," he was stunned for a while, before he said, "It's exactly the same. What kind of disguise can achieve such a level of falsehood?" There is no difference between Reiatsu and Ichimaru Jin, who has captured the spiritual network of the Phantom Aizen, which is no different from the real Aizen. Vivi Isho, the phantom body on the throne, said, "Welcome back, Yin. It's hard work." Haha, even the tone and way of speaking are the same. Ichimaru Jin couldn't help laughing. "Who the hell are you?" "Who am I? Interesting question, you don't believe your eyes." Genshin Aizen smiled gently, "I am Aizen, but the Aizen you know is not me. Can't you understand?" "It's weird to understand." Ichimaru Yin smiled and said, "The so-called Reiatsu is the spiritual power that the spirit body naturally emits. Just like breathing, each person's soul is different, and the Reiatsu is naturally different. In the history of the soul world, there have never been 2 Shinigami with the same Reiatsu. With that in mind, you and Aizen are the same soul. Is it a split?" In history, there was indeed a death god whose soul split and 2 selves appeared, but it was very short-lived. Because of the lack of soul, it was difficult to keep stock for a long time, so he died. "No, it can't be a split," Ichimaru Jin said again. "Replication ability." Seeing this, Genshin Aizen got up from the throne, pulled out the Zanpakuto from his waist, and hung the blade upside down. "Kyoka Shueyu," Ichimaru Jin sighed inwardly. "What kind of abilities can even the Zanpakuto copy?" Aizen said, "Kyoka Suzuki." The moment he heard the liberation language, Ichimaru Jin closed his eyes. "Look, you believe it yourself." Avatar Aizen said with a low smile, "There are 2 ways to decipher Kyoka Shueyu. First, at the moment Kyoka Shueyu activates, leave the coverage area of the spiritual pressure, so of course you won't be hit by the illusion. Second, after activation, touch Kyoka Shueyu. The blade, that kind of thing, didn't that Aizen tell you? Completely hypnotized, once you see Shikai in the mirror, you will fall into hypnosis for life. And the way to crack, just as Wanshin Aizen said." Ichimaru Jin Vivi opened his eyes and said solemnly, "Who are you? What is your purpose?" Saying so directly about Kyoka Suzuki's weakness, Ichimaru Jin had a bad premonition. How long had he lurked around Aizen in order to know this weakness? He. Wanton Aizen chuckled lightly. "Ichimaru Yin, I know what you want to do. Do you want to kill that Aizen and take back Benyu? Give it up, you can't kill him." Other party to speak, he continued, "The solution you came up with is nothing more than using your Bankai. Although you tell others that your Bankai, the knife will expand and contract at 500 times the speed of sound and cut everything, but in fact, your Bankai dissolves the blade body in an instant, and then reconstitutes it. At the same time, the inside of the blade will produce a powerful poison that is enough to dissolve cells. If you want to use this poison to kill Aizen, it is impossible, give it up, it's him, so I know you can't kill him." Hearing this, Ichimaru Jin's pupil Vivi shrank, and her heart was extremely shocked. His own Bankai is impossible for anyone but himself to know. And he, since he cultivated Bankai, has never disclosed it to anyone. How did this guy know about it? Moreover, can he even see through his innermost thoughts? Who are you? Ichimaru Jin's eyes were cold, and his right hand was already holding the Zanpakudo quietly. He, I said, I'm Aizen. Mikan stood on the high platform, looking down at Ichimaru Jin. I know what you're thinking, I know what that Aizen wants to do. I know what a fantasy monster is, and I know who King Arthur of Britain is. I know everything, I even know how to kill Aizen. Hearing this, Ichimaru Jin was shocked. Want to know? Huan Shen grinned and bewitched. The answer is in the Spirit King's palace. If you want to know, you can explore as much as you like. This is conspiracy. Even if Ichimaru Jin knew that there was a lot of deceit in it, he would still be deceived. Killing Aizen and recapturing Benyu had been his insistence for more than 100 years. Even if there is only a glimmer of possibility, he will put it into action. As for Qin Yang, he only needs to watch the play. Ichimaru Yin went to look for the Lingwang Palace. It was best, it didn't matter if he couldn't find it, he should add a block to Aizen. No matter what kind, wouldn't it be nice for him to follow behind as a Oriole? Do you think I would believe it? Suddenly, Ichimaru Jin put down his guarded stance. I have a lot of respect for Captain Aizen. Qin Yangchang did not hear this kind of trash talk. Respect, that is to wish the other party to die. Not to mention the situation of the Zai Palace, the Soul Realm, the 13th team of the 13th team of the Guardian. Kuchiki Byakuya told the general situation, and at the same time, he did not hide the fact that the King of Knights saved him. After listening to these words, Yamamoto Yuanyujai fell into silence. Zusheng, there are so many monsters as powerful as that sea dragon. A mysterious organization suddenly appeared. Yamamoto Yuanyujai, who was used to seeing wind and rain, was also a little heavy at the moment. It seems that this matter has to be communicated higher up. Maybe they know something. Speaking softly, Yamamoto Yuanyujai looked at the King of Knights and said, I'm sorry, I had doubts about it before. Next, I would like to invite you to stay in the Guardian 13th team as a guest. Surveillance again. The King of Knights curled his lips. No, you can do whatever you want this time, but you need at least an adjutant-level death god to accompany you. Hearing this, the King of Knights raised his eyebrows and said in his heart, this is what I've been waiting for. Then, I'm going to the Great Spirit Book Corridor. Chapter 0450 A pet in the district dares to resist its owner. The Great Spirit Book Corridor is a rather peculiar place, and even for the 13th team of the Guardian, it is very mysterious. To put it simply, it is a database that compulsorily collects and records all the events and information of the Soul Society. Qinyang needs information such as crossing the Realm Gate, spiritual land, Spirit King's Palace, etc., which must exist there. Therefore, when Yamamoto Yuanyujai suggested that he could move freely, he immediately said the Great Spirit Book Corridor. Originally, Yamamoto Yuanyujai would not allow an outsider to go to such a place, but considering that the King of Knights has information related to the dream, he may have to use the strength of the other party later, so he had to agree. A few hours later, outside the door of the central 46th room. The King of Knights came here alone, while the Soul Realm side has long been waiting for people. Are you the Knight King Arthur? The captain of the 5th Division greeted him with a smile on his face, and behind him was the Vice Captain Hina Morita. I heard that this time, thanks to you, Captain Kuchiki was able to escape back. I'm really grateful. Where, said the King of Knights with a smile, it is better to save a life than to build a 7-level pagoda. Rao is Aizen's acting skills, and when he heard this suddenly, he couldn't help but be stunned. I didn't expect that the King of Legends in Europe knows Buddhism very well. He quickly came back and smiled. I heard that you are going to enter the Great Spirit Book Corridor. Are you looking for some information? There is a lot of information there. I can do it for you. Quote. Number 000 to trouble you, thank you for your kindness. The King of Knights smiled. In this regard, Eisen didn't insist, and instead ordered his vice-captain, saying, Young Sen, take King Arthur to the Great Spirit Book Corridor and accompany him all the way. King Arthur, if you have any questions, you can ask the vice-captain of Young Sen. Yes, Captain Eisen. Hinamori Dao nodded, and then said to the King of Knights, Please come with me. Hearing this, the King of Knights immediately followed, and before leaving, rushed to Eisen Isho. This issue suddenly made Eisen feel a strange feeling in his heart, as if he had been seen through. He watched the two enter the central room 46, and stopped smiling until the door was closed. As a result of close-up observation, this person has a captain-level spiritual pressure, and the strength of the spiritual body is far above the general death god. No, it is not even the concept of death. Is there any other system? He thought to himself. To be honest, the King of Knights suddenly wanted to enter the Great Spirit Book Corridor, which really made it a little difficult for him. After all, the Great Spirit Book Corridor is below the 46th room in the center, and the 46th room in the center has been slaughtered by him. Fortunately, Hina Morita could be allowed to enter with the other party. If he hadn't considered that it might cause unnecessary trouble, he would have wanted to accompany him in person. This person must be fully hypnotized as soon as possible. Thinking of this, Eisen's eyes flashed, and he quickly came up with a countermeasure. Predict. Tilde. As less than or equal to 7, underscore. At the same time, Chinyang followed the young Centauk to the corridor of the Great Spirit Book. This guy Eisen must be thinking about completely hypnotizing me. The Night King sneered inwardly. Unfortunately, complete hypnosis is useless for me. To be precise, it's not useless, but before that, the fantasy body Eisen had already hypnotized all the dreamers, and the real Eisen, the latecomer, wanted to hypnotize again, but couldn't succeed. It's like coming first. Thinking like this, the King of Knights changed his mind and immediately said, Deputy Captain Hinamori. Yes. Shindao looked back and asked, Is something wrong? I want to say, the wrong way. Hina Morita was stunned, and she realized that she had taken the wrong path, taking the stairs up instead of down. I'm sorry, she hurriedly apologized, then froze again. Why are you so clear? She hadn't been here a few times. King Arthur, an outsider, even recognized his way. Intuition. Vivi Isho, the King of Knights, said, I have a super intuition. Please continue to lead the way. Yes. Hinamori Dao continued walking ahead in a daze. Not long after, the two finally came to the Great Spirit Book Corridor. This is a hexagonal tower room space with an elevator in the center. There are about dozens of floors, and each floor has inestimable information storage. Then I'll start. King of Knights, Vivi Isho, immediately began to look for it. In the present world, Kakuzucho. The battle last night did not cause much commotion. By the time of sunrise, the effect of the ice and snow lotus had been lifted. For ordinary people, it was just an ordinary morning. In an abandoned cathedral, above the railings on the second floor, Saint Shui was sitting with the black cat in his arms. In the church hall on the first floor, the 5 captured gods of death, including Asane Renji, were fighting and practicing with each other. They fought each other with the Zanpakudo to hone their combat power. Although 5 people fought against a vice-captain, 6 hours had passed since they practiced, and these gods of death were exhausted. No way, Deputy Captain Sanjing. Yes, let's take a break. Haha, why do you do such a thing? Several death gods gasped in prostration. Sanjing Renji was also sweating profusely. Seeing the miserable state of several of his subordinates, he immediately turned his head and looked at Shui Sheng. Hey, they've reached their limit. There's no point in continuing, let's take a break. No, Shui Sheng said calmly, continue. As long as you don't die, continue. Asshole. Sanjing Renji was very annoyed, but he didn't dare to attack. Instead he hummed, what is your purpose for us to cultivate each other? Is that just like that? Ordinary prisoners, aren't they all captured and locked in some dark corner? There is no such thing. Purpose. No purpose, don't want to suffer. You should learn Bankai as soon as possible. Shui Sheng chuckled. The other gods of death are not worth mentioning, but you still have the potential of Bankai, come on. Damn monsters. Cursed inwardly, arrested them, restricted their movements, but let them practice, and also had to learn Bankai. What the hell is this big monster doing? Suddenly, Shui Sheng raised his brows, and in his perception, he sensed a familiar and unfamiliar aura. Little she-cat, watch them for me. I'm leaving. Shui Sheng put down the black cat in his arms and got up to leave. Huh, the black cat was stunned. Isn't the monster afraid that it will run away? I'm not your subordinate. Just a pet, dare to resist its owner. Zhu Sheng glanced at it and said playfully, be good and do your thing, I'll buy you cat food later. Saying that, he dodged and disappeared immediately. This time, the black cat is really dumbfounded. Does this big monster do things based on mood? Are you really not afraid of it running away? No, this person seems to be invisible in his actions, but there must be something behind him. Maybe he has cast a tracking type magic trick on me. The black cat's eyes flickered. He hesitated for a moment, but still did not choose to escape immediately. If Shui Sheng knew what he was thinking, he would have to laugh 3 times. There is no trace of the demonic imprint. He just knew the origin of this black cat, and he was not afraid of it running away. Not to mention the situation in the abandoned cathedral. After Saint Shui left, he quickly appeared over a campus. He stood in the sky, looking down, and from the window glass on the 3rd floor, he saw a classroom, and a man and a woman sitting in the classroom. Ichigo Kurosaki. Chapter-441-460 Kurosaki. Ichigo Kurosaki. Zhu Sheng stood in the void, with his hands on his back, staring at the teaching building below, looking inward from the window on the 3rd floor. In the classroom, he saw a boy with short orange hair, and the god of death Kuchiki, Rukia, whom he had met a week ago. Of course, the current Kuchiki Rukia is wearing a student outfit, not the dark death tyrant outfit. Not only that, but looking at her appearance, it seems that she has lost the power of death. Have you put on a corpse? The righteous skeleton refers to the body used by the death god who has lost his strength in an emergency, or a temporary container, for convenience of action. The righteous skeleton of Rukia Kuchiki, of course, was not made by the Technology Development Bureau of the Soul Society. No accident, it was the credit of Urahara Kazuki. So, Urahara Kazuki has already hid his Benyu in this righteous skeleton. Shui Sheng considered whether he could take it with his hands. Although he already had a mature collapsing jade, if he absorbed another failed product, he might be able to improve it even further. However, considering that he didn't have the technology to pick up the Benyu from the righteous skeleton, after thinking about it, he gave up for the time being. Anyway, the Benyu was there and couldn't run away, so he wasn't in a hurry. Just as he was thinking, the bell rang in the classroom building. After the teacher left, a student jumped up and shouted, Ichigo! Look, there is someone flying in the air outside the window. The boy with short brown hair ran to Kurosaki Ichigo's seat after class and made a fuss. Someone is flying, look. He excitedly pointed to the location of Saint Shui. Huh, are you still awake? Kurosaki Ichigo rolled his eyes and followed the other party's gaze, but saw nothing. However, there are pieces of snowflakes flying, and they melt into the world in an instant. Huh, the boy was also startled by Vivi. Strange, there was someone. So, you're kidding me. Before the words were finished, Kurosaki Ichigo's expression changed suddenly. Roar. A monster's roar came from a distance, clearly audible. Virtual. Kurosaki Ichigo thought to himself, and then recalled that the night before a week ago, he rescued a girl who passed out by the river, thus entering the bizarre supernatural world. And the girl was walking towards him at this moment. Wait. Time is urgent, I'll talk about it later. Kuchiki Rukia's face was solemn, she put a red glove on herself, and then slammed towards Kurosaki Ichigo's forehead. Boom! Kurosaki Ichigo only felt that his soul was shaken, and he was grabbed abruptly, and then he saw his body lying on the desk. Go! The next moment, without giving him any chance to speak, Kuchiki Rukia dragged him and quickly ran out of the classroom, leaving behind a group of stunned students. They couldn't see the spiritual body, but they could see Rukia Kuchiki slap Ichigo Kurosaki on the forehead, and Ichigo Kurosaki was lying on the table. Wait, you forcibly pulled me out like this, did you get my consent? Kurosaki Ichigo's form of the god of death, dressed in a death tyrant outfit, with a long sword on his back. Purifying the void is the responsibility of the god of death. I have lost the power of the god of death now, so my responsibility will be shouldered by you. Kuchiki Rukia said seriously, if you leave it alone, there will be a lot of you will be devoured by the void. As she spoke, she recalled the night a week earlier. The mysterious man asked her a question at that time. Do you know Kurosaki Ichigo? This sentence is still in my ears, and it refers to the 16-year-old student in front of me. What is the relationship between the two, Kuchiki Rukia doesn't know yet. She wanted to report the matter to the Soul Society, but now she has lost the power of the god of death, and she has also transferred her power to humans. This is a serious crime. She was in a dilemma and had to keep the status quo for the time being. However, without the power, the responsibilities cannot be lost, so the work of purifying the virtual had to be handed over to Kurosaki Ichigo. Stop talking nonsense and leave now. Under repeated urging, Kurosaki Ichigo had to go together. The two pursued Shu's breath and came to an alley. They thought Shu was devouring their souls, but unexpectedly, they saw a person instead. The man was wearing a snow-white ancient robe, like an ancient visitor, and the other party seemed to be able to see Shu, standing in front of Shu, motionless. Are you scared? Kurosaki Ichigo's expression changed, and he immediately shouted, Hey, get out of the way. As he said that, he pulled out the huge zanpakuto on his back and ran wildly in the direction of Ku and the man. However, before he could approach 10 meters, a red-haired figure suddenly appeared from the other side. Don't go near him, idiot. A Sanjing Renji intercepted and went away, blocking Kurosaki Ichigo. Under the storage, Ichigo Kurosaki raised the gear to resist, and was then slammed into the air. The whole person flew upside down and rolled to the feet of Kuchiki Rukia. What? Kurosaki Ichigo was shocked, looked at the red-haired man who suddenly appeared, and said, You death. He was confused, didn't he say that a city has only one death god stationed? Confused, he looked at Rukia Kuchiki beside him. However, Kuchiki Rukia seemed more surprised than him, staring at the red-haired man with wide eyes. I knew that since void appeared, as long as you were still alive, it would definitely appear too. A Sanjing Renji narrowed his eyes, stared at Kuchiki Rukia, gritted his teeth and said, What the hell did you do? You lost the power of death. Give the power to this human. You are crazy, Rukia. Quote. Love. Don't come here. A Sanjing Renji's expression changed slightly, and he immediately shouted, Don't get close, this guy is very dangerous. Run. Hearing this, Shui Sheng couldn't help laughing. Don't call me like a beast of a flood, this saint won't do anything to you. Not so good. I almost killed Captain Kuchiki yesterday. A Sanjing Renji took a deep breath and said solemnly to Kuchiki Rukia, You all run, leave it to me. Don't look back, run as far as you can. What's going on? Ichigo Kurosaki looked dumbfounded. Who is this strangely dressed man? Rukia, do you know each other? The scene was very complicated, and the atmosphere froze for a while. A Sanjing Renji roared angrily, Don't run. I can only hold on for a few seconds, take advantage of this time, run. How many seconds? Hearing this, Shui Sheng raised his eyebrows and said playfully, You think too much of yourself, a Sanjing Renji, I want to clean up you, a moment is enough. As soon as the voice fell, Shui Sheng's figure disappeared, and the next moment, he appeared beside Renji Asanjing. At the same time, the right hand gently hit the opponent's chest, as if knocking on the door, with a light movement. So fast. Asanjing Renji's pupils shrank, and she could barely see a trace of afterimage in her eyes, but her body was too late to react. The next moment, he only felt that a few bones in his chest were broken, and with a bang, the whole person flew upside down. If you interrupt your cultivation without permission, I miss your first offense, so I will spare your life. Shui Sheng said lightly, Kurosaki Ichigo, Kuchiki Rukia, since you took the initiative to come here, then clean up together. Hearing this, Kurosaki Ichigo's expression was shaken. The god of death, who had driven him back with a sword just now, was seriously injured by this person's casual blow. This guy is not human. Not even a god of death. Who are you? He muttered. Chapter 0452_Team 0. This is not human, not even a god of death. There is no feeling of spiritual pressure, and it does not have the aura of human beings. What radiates from the man in the ancient robe in front of him is a bone-chilling cold. Who the hell are you? Kurosaki Ichigo lost his voice. Zhu Sheng stepped forward, giving him a great sense of oppression. Ichigo Kurosaki, your current power of death comes from Rukia Kuchiki. Ordinary humans can't absorb the power of death, so you don't find it strange. Who are you? Why? Hearing these words suddenly, not only Kurosaki Ichigo, but also Kuchiki Rukia thought subconsciously. You know me. Kurosaki Ichigo was shaken. What happened today was too strange for him. Of course, since you were born, you have been followed by a lot of people. Shui Sheng didn't want to say more, and when he walked in front of the two, a snow wind blew past. Under the slap of the snow wind, Kurosaki Ichigo and Kuchiki Rukia only felt stiff all over, as if their blood vessels and nerves were frozen by the power of the snow wind. Wait. At this moment, Renji Asanjing's voice came from behind him. He clutched his chest, his mouth was full of blood, dragged his severely injured body, and walked step by step. Let them go. Great monster, although I don't know yours purpose, but this woman is just an inconsequential little character. Shui Sheng glanced at him sideways, and immediately waved his right hand. The snow wind swept through, and a gust of snow hung in the daytime. When the wind and snow dissipated, the four had disappeared in this small alley. And not long after they disappeared, on the roof of the alley, a young man with a yellow sister's head, who looked like a condescending young man, suddenly appeared. Disappeared. The man frowned, looked at the motionless shoe, and with a dodge, he came to shoe. He looked at it, and the more he looked, the more frightened he became. From the inside to the outside, it was solidified in an instant, and it was obliterated from the soul level. Who is this strong guy? Saying so, he stretched out his finger and tapped lightly on the empty mask. Boom. Like a domino, the moment the fingers touched it, the head started from the head, turned into dust and dissipated, and like an hourglass, it drifted into the air little by little. Man took a deep breath and couldn't help muttering, what happened in this city? What is happening now? Yesterday, today, or even a week ago? A week ago, the horse had a broken face and was easily killed by him. It's just a normal phantom shattering. Although the degree of shattering is very high, it is very weak and not worth mentioning. There is a remnant of the spiritual pressure of the god of death, and in addition, there is a more powerful and cold aura. Man scratched his head, and his demeanor returned to laziness again. Forget it, it's none of my business. Abandoned cathedral. Shui Sheng captured the three of Kurosaki Ichigo and threw them in the hall on the first floor. The black cat was lying on top of the railing on the second floor, seeing the tragic condition of Renji Asanjing, and couldn't help shaking his head. It won't get better if I don't rest for 10 days and a half months. Hearing this, Zhu Sheng flicked the black cat's forehead with his fingers, and reprimanded, let you watch them, and you lie down and sleep here. It hurts. The black cat barked, arching its back and staring at Shui Sheng with bared teeth. Zhu Sheng ignored it, turned to look at Kurosaki Ichigo and the others, and said, relax, I will not do anything to you. you will stay here to cultivate. Where is this place? Kurosaki Ichigo looked left and right, and saw the 5 gods of death, and couldn't help but look surprised. Are these all prisoners? However, before he could be prepared, Shui Sheng suddenly flicked his finger. Snow lotus needles. Whoosh! 2 long snow-white needles suddenly shot out, piercing through Kurosaki Ichigo's body in an instant. What? Kurosaki Ichigo's eyes widened, only to feel that his body was stiff and weak, and the power of death in his body was passing at an extremely fast speed. With a thud, he fell to his knees. The side, Kuchiki Rukia opened her mouth and said in awe, "You broke its knots and sleep." Lock knots and sleep, these are the 2 deadly parts of the god of death, just like the heart of a human being. After being penetrated, the power of the god of death will quickly flow away, and if you leave it alone, you will die. He. Shui Sheng chuckled and said, "The power of death you gave him will hinder his awakening of his own power. If you don't remove your power, he will never be able to master Bankai." What? Rukia Kuchiki was confused. Archangel, trouble you. Suddenly, Saint Shui raised his head and shouted towards the top of the abandoned cathedral. The next moment, on the broken ceiling, a divine light was projected. Boom! Holy light enveloped Kurosaki Ichigo, quickly restoring his vitality. Seeing this scene, the black cat was shocked. It looked up, but could only see the figure of a 10-winged archangel vaguely. This is also one of the big fantasy demons. It thought in shock. It's such a strong resilience. Almost in an instant, this kid is alive. After the knots and brokenness are broken, it is like a person's heart being pierced. However, this holy light repairs the heart in an instant. This is no longer comparable to the power of healing ghosts, it is simply a violation of the realm of God. After a long time, the holy light dissipated, as if it had never appeared. The old god Zusheng was looking down at the people below. Okay, your power of death has disappeared. Next, you can wake up yourself. Don't disappoint me too much, Ichigo Kurosaki. Compared with a Sanjing Renji, Kurosaki Ichigo's Bankai is obviously more worthy of absorption. Within half a month, you have to become Bankai, if you can't do it. If it can't be done, Shui Sheng said that he has to use some unconventional means. And the black cat couldn't help but be speechless when he heard this. Bankai, that is a skill that can only be mastered after the god of death has tried thousands of times. Even a person with talent may need decades of practice, half a month. Whether it can be Shikai or not is the question. Don't you believe it? Shui Sheng looked at it playfully. How could my ability to wait for a dream be something that you little female cat can guess? 0.6. The black cat gave him a white look and lay there, as if he didn't want to say more. However, the first glimpse of the archangel caused a great shock to it. The mysterious organization, Dream, is even more terrifying than imagined. A few days later, the Soul Realm. In the team building of the first team, the Captain Yamamoto Yuanyujai met with a woman. This woman was dressed in white haori, but unlike the general captain's haori, there was no division number on her back. Women are very cool and beautiful. That's about it. What do you know about this, Team Zero? Dream. Lang Yan and Feng Feng pinched her chin, pondered for a moment, and suddenly smiled. I really don't know about the concubine body. The captain doesn't know. How does the concubine body know? Really curious. Chapter 0453 _ come here, let's have a cup of tea. Team Zero, the exclusive agent of the royal family, is not under the leadership of the 46th room of the central government, and is directly ordered by the royal family, that is, the Spirit King. Before the creation of the Gotei 13th team, Team Zero was in charge of guarding Seraiti. The number of its members is only 5, but the combined combat power of the 5 is more than the entire army of the 13th team of the Guardian. The person who came from the lower realm of Lingwang Palace this time is a beautiful woman codenamed Dajisho, whose name is Shutara Chinshumaru. The mysterious organization, Dream, has already attracted the attention of the Spirit King. Softly, my concubine's mission in the lower realm is to investigate the great dream demon. According to the information sent by the 2nd Division, the present Kongza town is controlled by a big monster named Snow Saint. There is no information about the monsters appearing in the other cities. Yamamoto Yuanyujai said solemnly, their purpose is to heavy the soul. Spirituality, spiritual veins. Shutara Chinshumaru gave a clear snort and chuckled. So that's the case, the target is, Wang Jian, is it Lord Spirit King? One of the usages of the heavy spirit ground is to create the King Key, and the King Key is the key to enter the palace of the Spirit King. 15 When he heard the dream occupying the land of heavy spirituality, Shutara's first reaction was this. Who are the fantasy members currently in hand? She asked again. In this regard, Yamamoto Yuanyujai glanced at his vice captain and motioned for an explanation. Immediately, the deputy captain summed up the information collected during this period of time and told it again. The nine-tailed demon fox, the first monster to appear, the 9 tails, is condensed by pure evil energy, and its combat power exceeds the captain level. If you want to suppress it, you need more than 2 captains. No obvious weakness has been found yet. Onmyoji, unknown name, human, mastering Onmyoji, can control captain-level death god for a short time, and the combat power evaluation is equivalent to captain-level combat power. Because it is human, it is very easy to deal with. Sea Dragon, the leader of the dream, one of the great monsters of the dream, has the power to control the rain, super defensive ability, and at the same time has the move to transform into a golden dragon, which can strengthen itself in a short period of time. Its combat power is close to the commander-in-chief. The mysterious monster that is as dark as a shadow has the power to travel through space. The specific situation is temporarily unknown. Zusheng, one of the great fantasy monsters, currently occupies the empty seat town, and captured several gods of death, including Asanjing Renji and others, and once easily defeated the captain of the 6th Division, Byakuya Kuchiki. The combat power is very strong, and if you want to go head-to-head, you need 4 or more captains. Quote. Besides that, Emperor Qin, the leader who is suspected of being a dream. He came from the mouth of the sea dragon and can suppress many big demons. His strength is probably far surpassing the captain. After hearing this, Shiraduo couldn't help but be surprised. There are so many, she couldn't help muttering, and every one of them is very strong, especially the Dominion rank. I'm afraid it's not easy for me to deal with. This is only a part. Yamamoto Yuanyujai said solemnly. According to speculation, the number of master-level demons will be more than 4. As for the reason for this speculation, one has to ask the central 46th room. This is really the biggest enemy for thousands of years. Shutara turned around as usual, and left the first team building. Next, the concubine will go to the world to investigate in person, and you will protect Seraiti for the time being to prevent them from invading again. While the two were talking, a small fly hovered above the ceiling of the room, taking pictures of everything. At the same time, somewhere in Seraiti, in a dark room, on the big screen, a scene of Shutara talking with Yamamoto Motoyazai was playing. King Ling I really heard incredible news. Dong Xian wanted to whisper, Captain Aizen, what do you think? It's the spy who is in trouble, that woman. Aizen sat down. Vivi smiled and said, the situation in the 46th room in the center can deceive other people, but not necessarily deceive this woman. There are now 2 time bombs. One is the Night King Arthur, and the other is Shutara Senjumaru of the 0 Division. Neither of these 2 were under the influence of complete hypnosis, and it was easy to expose the massacre in the 46th room in the center. Then, what should I do next? Dongxian asked. It's a crisis, but also a great opportunity. Aizen Vivi Isho said, Dream has also helped us a lot to a certain extent, creating a sense of urgency for Seranje, and the preliminary preparations have been completed. Next, just catch Kuchiki Rukia back and that's it. What happened in this world could not be concealed from his eyes and ears. Kurosaki Ichigo and Kuchiki Rukia fell into the hands of the Snow Saint, which was rather a headache. It seems that they have to get in touch with Dream. Their goal is likely to be the palace of the King of Spirits. Maybe they can join forces. If there is such a possibility, with the cooperation of the inside and the outside, it may really be possible to capture the Soul realm. Chin-young didn't know Aizen's plan, and he still used the identity of the Snow Saint to train Asane Renji and Kurosaki Ichigo in a leisurely way in the present world. It's not that there is nothing to do, but waiting for the corpse and soul world to come to the door. At this moment, he was sitting cross-legged on the second floor of the cathedral, teasing the black cat, and secretly said in his heart, "Several days have passed, no matter how slow the response is, it's time for someone from the Soul Society. Whether it is to save people or to inquire about the truth, someone will definitely come over in the next few days." Everything was as Chin-young had expected. In the middle of the night, an uninvited guest who was hiding the spiritual pressure finally found the cathedral. "I have investigated most of the vacant towns, and only this one is the most suspicious." The captain of the second division, Broken Bee, secretly said in her heart that she sneaked in from the roof of the cathedral, and did not dare to walk around at will, but hid in a dark corner and looked at everything in the church. Strange, isn't there anything? One pair of naked eyes exposed. After confirming that there was no breath nearby, she moved her body slightly and approached the aisle. From above the aisle, looking towards the church hall, I finally saw several of the captured gods of death. The group of people slept on the floor, completely unable to feel the breath of Reiatsu. "What?" Broken Bee was taken aback. "What's going on? Are you cut off by some barrier?" "It's not the enchantment, it's the spiritual pressure that sealed them." Was 653, she suddenly remembered a male voice, and Shubi was shocked and stiffened. The next moment, she fled out suddenly, and glanced behind her at the same time. "That's a black cat. Escape, it's best if you can escape." The black cat licked his paws and said speechlessly, "The Soul Society has also fallen, so I sent someone here, and I look down on these monsters too much." For these words, Broken Bee ignored her. She had already rushed to the broken window and was about to escape from here. However, at this moment, a palm, at some point, pressed on his shoulder. Phew, Broken Bee subconsciously wanted to fight back, however, this palm seemed to have some kind of magic power, which made her unable to move. "Little girl, come here, why don't you have a cup of tea before leaving?" Chin-yang's body stepped out of the illusion, and it seemed as if it had penetrated the space. Who are you?" Broken Bee looked at the mysterious person in disbelief. "You are not Snow Saint." Black hair, black eyes, dressed in white clothes, and an ethereal temperament. If it wasn't visible to the naked eye, Broby wouldn't be able to perceive the other party's existence at all. It was as if there was a dimension between the two. "I am Emperor Qin." Chin-yang's expression was indifferent, but he looked up at the top of the church. "Don't hide the other guest, do you want to deceive me with your level?" The next moment, a chuckle came. "I saw a beautiful woman, floating down. You are Emperor Qin, the leader of the Great Demon." Chapter 0454-Sci-fi Yuan Night 1. You are Emperor Qin, the leader of the Great Demons. Chinshumaru Shutara floated down, looking at Chin-young with a pair of beautiful eyes. Its existence is either true or false, uncertain and difficult to speculate. If it wasn't for the naked eye, the other party did exist, and one hand suppressed the Broken Bee. She really doubted whether it was some kind of illusion. While she was looking at Chin-young was also looking at her. This woman has black medium-length hair with side-parted bangs, intricate golden hair accessories, and a white shawl with clasps. She has a delicate face and a slightly pale complexion. In particular, there are 6 skeleton arms behind it, which looks quite different. At this moment, this woman is flying in the air. It turned out to be Da Zisho. Chin-young nodded and said with a chuckle, "The spy of Team Zero is really surprising. The concubine is the most unexpected." Chinshumaru Shutara's eyes flashed and he said, "If the concubine is not mistaken, Emperor Qin is a human." He wasn't a pure human either. When he was promoted to the 6th star, Qin Yang's soul had already transformed into a higher dimension, which was a much higher level than the god of death. Of course, Chinshomaru Shutuo Luo couldn't see it. Is it important that I am a human being or a demon? Qinyang Vivi laughed. It's Daji Shou, who is visiting late at night to accompany me to drink and watch the moon. Hearing this, Senju Maru Shutaro couldn't help but let out a coquettish smile. She had previously thought about what a vicious character the dream leader would be, but in fact, only after seeing it did she realize that the other party was an interesting man. If you hadn't invaded Seraiti and occupied the empty town, my concubine would still be willing to have a drink with you. That's a pity. Listening to the angerless conversation between the two, Broby couldn't help but change slightly. She was held by Qin Yang's shoulders, completely unable to move, and at this moment, a strange force came from the opponent's palm. Mysterious runes climbed up her skin and her soul was imprisoned. This is, Xiao Fengjiao was shocked, you are also an Onmyoji. She stunned. Abe Seimei used this move to control Kenpachi Zaraki, and the situation at that time was the same as what she was experiencing at the moment. No, I'm not an Onmyoji. Qinyang grinned Isho, however, I'll be a little bit better at restraining this kind of ability from Shikigami. In short, Broken Bee, arrest Dazisho. Asshole. The Broken Bee gritted his teeth, but his body was very honest. The same as the restraint of Shikigami. Qinyang himself uses it, and Abe Seimei uses it. They are two different powers. To kill all the enemies. Sparrow bees. Shibi took out the Zanpakudo and said liberating words in his mouth. The next moment, the blade turned into a sharp finger cuff, which was placed on the middle finger of his right hand. Don't get stabbed, this is the second strike tilde, sure kill. Broken Bee shouted, and with a move, he rushed towards Shutara Chinshumaru. Fu at. Seeing this, Shutalu's eyes narrowed slightly, observing the mysterious rune on Broken Bee's body. A power completely different from the ghost realm, but in this world, there is no real Onmyoji. In ancient times, it was just an official position. Could it be that the real Onmyoji has always been lurking? She thought about it, and couldn't figure out why such a power would appear. But when she saw Broken Bee slaying with one finger, she didn't dare to hold on to it. Immediately, she thought, and a skeleton arm behind her punched a needle. Extreme clothes. Whoosh. The silver needle pierced away, and at a speed faster than the naked eye, he quickly sewed Broken Bee's night clothes. The next moment, the extreme clothing tightened, fixing the Broken Bee, making it difficult to move. Seeing this, Shutara Chinshumaru smiled and said, Emperor Qin knows that his concubine is Dajisho, and he should also know why his concubine has this title, right? It's a pity, you want to control the Broken Bees to deal with it. Concubine, then you underestimate Team 02. All the members of the Zero Team created something that was not seen in the Soul World, so they were recognized by the Spirit King, and then they were promoted to the Zero Team. Dajisho, as the name suggests, is the one who created the Death Tyrant costume. But after hearing her words, Qinyang ignored her, instead bent down and picked up the black cat. Then, he reached out and waved. In an instant, the table and chairs suddenly appeared. Illusions manifest. Qinyang hugged the black cat and sat down leisurely. Lord Qin Emperor. At the same time, Shui Sheng came over with green tea and slowly served Qinyang tea. Seeing this scene, Shutara Chinshumaru couldn't help raising his eyebrows, secretly annoyed. This guy just ignores her. Arrogant man. With a light snort, Shudo Luo immediately shot out 3 silver needles. Whoosh whoosh. The silver needle pierced through the night, flashing a cold light, pointing directly at Qinyang. Qinyang ignored this, holding the black cat in one hand and green tea in the other, with a gesture full of leeway. Seeing the silver needles approaching, Shui Sheng shot out like lightning, only to see a flash of white light, and the 3 silver needles were caught by his 2 fingers. What? Shutara Chinshumaru Vivi was shocked, and secretly said in his heart, is this the big demon? Her silver needle flies at a speed far exceeding the speed of sound, but even so, the opponent can hold it with her fingers, which is incredible. Avoiding, bouncing off, it is understandable, but holding it with your fingers, what is the difference between that and a cannon hitting a fly a few kilometers away? He. Shui Sheng squeezed lightly, and the silver needle immediately became icy clean. Zuchuo Luo Qin Shouwan, this saint is your opponent, and you want to test Lord Qin Emperor, you are 1,000 years too early. Between the words, he stretched out his right palm, Shifeng. Call. In an instant, the wind and snow whistled, and hundreds of millions of six-flower crystals, under the raging wind and snow, slayed towards Shutara. Seeing this, Shutara gave up dealing with Qin Yang, and immediately threw his sleeves, his spiritual pressure soared, and his figure quickly retreated. Regarding Shui Sheng's ability, she learned from the information that she would not be easily trapped by the other party's wind and snow field. Very cautious, but you can't escape either. As soon as he took a step, Shui Sheng immediately chased after him. At the same time, Qin Yang took a sip of green tea and stroked the black cat's head with a chuckle. In this regard, the black cat was distressed. She used to be Shui Sheng's pet, but now she has become Qin Emperor's pet, which is simply miserable. The point is, unlike the power that Shui Sheng can feel, Emperor Qin is simply unfathomable. Thinking so, Qin Yang's voice suddenly sounded. Yi in Saifengyuan, your hobby of disguising as a cat is really special. The moment he heard this, the black cat's pupils shrank suddenly, and the entire petite body fell into a state of rigidity. It took a while for her to speak, but this time, it was a female voice. When did you find out? He. Qin Yang chuckled and said playfully, when? Interesting question, when did you have the illusion that I don't know this? Hearing this, Saifengyuan looked ashen at night, but in the form of a black cat, it couldn't be seen at all. Of course I knew, from the beginning. Chapter 0455 _ You can't bear my master. Of course I knew, from the beginning, it was clear. Qin Yang stroked the black cat's soft fur, and he could clearly feel the other party's nervousness. Don't be nervous, I won't do anything to you. Hearing this, the black cat did not relax, and still spoke with great vigilance. How did you find out? Under this posture, my reiatsu is sealed by itself, and it is no different from a real cat except that it can speak. Quote. Just a talking black cat is bizarre enough. Qin Yang sneered inwardly and said with a chuckle, I said, don't be nervous, if I were to shoot you, you would have died many times. Hearing this, black cat, no, Saifengyuan Yi also had to admit that the other party could indeed do it. After getting along for a few days, the other party had countless opportunities to kill him, but he didn't do that, not to mention her. Even the prisoners like Asanjing Renji were not killed, but trained under the other party's arrangement. A small improvement. Thinking of this, Saifengyuan Yi jumped from Qin Yang's arms to the table, then turned to stare at Qin Yang. Since you see through it, then I won't pretend. Between the words, a thick spiritual mist emanated from under her four claws. At the same time as the mist was swirling around, the black cat gradually changed from standing on four legs to standing on two legs. The structure of the skeleton changed 330, the black hair faded, and the cat face transformed into a human face. A naked, brown-skinned beauty. It's been a long time since I changed back to human form, but I'm not used to it. Saifengyuan Yi put one hand on his hip, and was about to appreciate Qin Yang's stunned expression, but saw the other party staring at him with interest. Let's compliment you for a while, you are in good shape. Qin Yang drank tea calmly and said, however, if there is no exhibitionism, please wear some clothes. As he said that, he waved his hand, and suddenly a set of snow-white ladies' clothes appeared. Hearing this, Saifengyuan Yi sighed inwardly and said, I can't believe that the dream leader still carries women's clothes with him. Hearing this, Qin Yang smiled, the wisdom of mortals. You don't need to test me with words, just tell me directly. This is the ability to materialize, and it can project the objects imagined in your mind into reality. You can understand it is, out of nothing. Quote. Out of nothing. Sifeng Yuan Yi took a deep breath. If the other party didn't lie, it would be a godlike power. I want to change, could you turn your head a little? Thinking of this, Sifeng Yuan asked Yi. Qin Yang stared at the other party and turned around after a while. Please. Thank you, underscore. At the same time as the words Xie fell, Sifeng Yuan Yi equals Yiban jumped and fled outside the church. Seeing this, Qin Yang's figure moved and disappeared in place in an instant. From a broken window on the second floor of the cathedral, Sifeng Yuan had just rushed out at night when he saw a man dressed in snow-white clothes standing in the air, holding tea in his hand. What? She said incredulously, her eyes widened. When you suddenly changed from cat form to human form, that's because, being seen through, cat form is inconvenient to escape. Qin Yang took a sip of green tea, shook his head and said, you deliberately showed me naked to distract me, but you think too much. If you can be fooled by beauty, I'd be dead long ago. Pause. He smiled and said, in the end, you had no choice but to use the excuse of changing clothes to make me turn around and try to escape. Hearing this, Sifeng Yuan looked solemn at night. The other party's movements were too fast, and in an instant she passed in front of her, and she didn't see the other party's movement trajectory at all. That's not shunpo, but a more clever way of moving. Thinking of this, Sifeng Yuan Yi sighed and said, it really wasn't that easy to escape. But, Emperor Qin, since you know my name is Sifeng Yuan Yi, you should also know that I used to have a title, right? Shen Shen, Yi. Qin Yang, Vivi Isho, said, you can try. Really confident enough to admire. Sifeng Yuan Yi couldn't help shaking her head, and in the next instant, she disappeared. Shunbu is the high-speed moving pace of the god of death. The go, in the four basic, cut fists and go ghosts, is the power that every god of death must cultivate, and the go, among them, Sifeng Yuan Yi has reached its peak degree, so more than 100 years ago, it was called Shen Shen. At this moment, when it is displayed, almost instantly, a distance of several hundred meters, one step has already left Qin Yang far behind. In a few seconds, Sifeng Yuan Yi had already opened a distance of thousands of meters. She looked back, but her face changed slightly. There, Qin Yang was gone. And when she turned back and looked forward again, her pupils couldn't help shrinking. What? She opened her mouth, full of shock, and immediately changed direction and fled to another place, so fast. How did you keep up? With your speed, you can't escape. Suddenly, Qin Yang's voice sounded in his ears, and Vivi of Sifeng Yuan looked sideways, only to see the other party following him like a stroll in a leisurely courtyard. In addition to being surprised, Sifeng Yuan Yi couldn't help but secretly observe. This observation immediately shocked her heart. It was not a matter of speed at all, but traveling through space. After a long time, Vivi gasped and stopped. Looking at Qin Yang's half-smiling face, Sifeng Yuan Yi said helplessly, I admit defeat. But it's not fair. You are cheating at all, and I understand the ability to travel through space. To put it simply, it was like the school playground, where she had to run a circle, and Qin Yang walked right through the center of the playground. He. Qin Yang couldn't help but smile and said, so, if you want to run, it's a dream. Sifeng Yuan smiled bitterly, I admit defeat, I haven't used human form for a long time, just a few hundred steps, I can't bear it. She gave up her plan to escape for the time being, and wanted to escape in the hands of an unfathomable person like Emperor Qin. It was too difficult, and she had to wait for the next opportunity. Probably seeing what she was thinking, Qin Yang still drank tea and said, don't wait for the next time, you can go now. Huh? Sifeng Yuan Yi's eyes widened. I said, you can't escape, but it doesn't limit your freedom. Qin Yang grinned, since you want to leave, then let's go, but remember to turn his turning body from Urahara Kazuki. Borrow it, I'll use it tomorrow. That said, Qin Yang turned around and returned to the cathedral, beckoning and saying, "Also, don't run naked at night." The voice gradually faded, and the figure disappeared quickly. Sifeng Yuan stared blankly at the direction of Emperor Qin's disappearance. What on earth is this man trying to do? Catch her as a pet without restricting her freedom. Stop her from escaping, let her leave, and order her to go back tomorrow with a divine body. Sifeng Yuan Yi held his forehead and shook his head again and again. What an elusive person. Not long after, Qin Yang returned to the cathedral, and as soon as he sat down, he saw Sifeng Yuan came back at night. "Huh, you can't bear my master." "That's not it," Sifeng Yuan said angrily. "I just came back to get my clothes." Chapter 0456 confused Urahara Kazuki. The error, the problem described by the narrator, and the days spent together refer to an Shui Sheng. Close black lens bracket. Since Qin Yang didn't stop her from leaving, Sifeng Yuan Yi decided to leave after getting dressed. Qin Yang didn't care about her running away. Kuzumaki was so big, and it was easy to find her. Moreover, he was almost certain that the other party would come back soon. Drinking green tea leisurely, Qin Yang looked at the other woman with great interest. Captain of the 2nd Division, Broken B. First controlled by his Shikigami, and then bound by Shutara Chinshumaru's ultimate robe. At this moment, the whole person was wrapped like a zongzi, fell to the floor, motionless. Just as he was about to untie the other party's restraints, a figure flashed in front of him, and Shui Sheng has returned. Without verbal communication, Qin Yang also knew what happened. Team Zero is worthy of being Team Zero, and the strength of any member far exceeds that of the captain. Shutara Chinshumaru fought against Zhu Sheng, and after several trials, he escaped with a fake death. Illusion, clone, or what? Qin Yang thought about it for a while, but couldn't come up with an accurate result for the time being. It doesn't matter, that woman doesn't need to be too concerned. Compared to this. Saying that, he pointed his index finger. Immediately, the talisman that bound the broken bees disappeared and faded away, and the garment of extreme shattered in an instant. At the moment of freedom, Broken Bee didn't even think about it, and wanted to escape like lightning. However, although she is fast, Shui Sheng is faster than her. Almost in an instant, the right arm was twisted, and the shoulder was pressed tightly at the same time. "Don't think about running away, little girl, you are still too young," Shui Sheng said with a light smile. "Let go of me, despicable." Broken Bee glared at the two of them. "What did you do to Dajisho?" Previously bound by the ultimate clothing, and then bound by a Shikigami, she was blind to everything about the outside world, and she couldn't even hear her voice. "Don't worry, she just got injured and ran away." Shui Sheng shook his head and said, "Sure enough, a 3-star team is not enough to deal with Team Zero. If she wants to run with a 5-star rating, there is a 1 in 10,000 chance." "No." Hearing Shutalu fleeing, Broken Bee Vivi breathed a sigh of relief. As long as he escaped, he brought back the information of Emperor Qin and sounded the alarm for the Soul Society. As for what Star Shui Sheng said, she didn't understand at all. At this time, Emperor Qin put down the teacup, got up and walked in front of Broken Bee, and slowly took off the finger cots in his hands. Zanpakuto was confiscated. As for you, just the 2 people below are short of sparring. When such a big event happened, the people below also slept like dead pigs. On the one hand, there was an enchantment, and on the other hand, it was naturally exhausted from training. Bastard. The Broken Bee gritted his teeth, but was powerless to resist. For the first time, she discovered that the strength of the original captain was so vulnerable. Qin Yang ignored her resentment for the time being. After confiscating her Zanpakuto, plus the original Kuchiki Byakuyas, there are 2 Zanpakuto yin. Long for Kurosaki Ichigo and Asanjing Renji to learn Bankai, which is 4. Once you have all 4, you can start a new transformation. 1 Zanpakuto is enough to start a new transformation. If there are 4, I'm afraid there will be an illusion that is stronger than Shui Sheng. Qin Yang thought to himself. After the phantom body reaches the 5-star level, the strength will stagnate, and if you want to break through the 5-star limit, I am afraid that the key lies in the ability of the new transformation. In fact, it is also possible to use Bengyu to break the 5-star limit, but after all, Bengyu also has limitations, and it is very effective for spiritual bodies. After 5 stars, it is bound to continue to become stronger, but no general method has been found yet. Lien thought of this. Qinyang put away the Zanpakudo, and at the same time ordered, "Give her a seal." "Yes, Lord Qin Emperor." Boundary. It looks like a tunnel somewhere in the mountain, where Shutara Senjumuru walks. Her face was very pale, and there was blood on the corner of her mouth. "I am so careless. I didn't expect the big demon to be able to injure the concubine. If it wasn't for the illusion of death, it wouldn't be easy to escape from the hands of Shui Sheng. Mainly because of carelessness, if both sides go all out, the battle of life and death, she admits that she will not lose. Of course, this is not the key is Emperor Qin. This person feels too mysterious to her. She can't even test the other party alone. Just being a snow saint is enough to stop her. It seems that I must report to the King of Spirit and mobilize the power of the Zero team." With a flash of eyes, her steps became faster and faster, and the whole person floated 10 centimeters off the ground and flew away quickly. The next day, noon. Inside the cathedral, Kurosaki Ichigo and Asane Renji were 2 against 1, and they fought against the bees. At first, he was very reluctant, but fearing the power of the Shikigami restraint, Broken Bee finally acted as a sparring partner. There is an ice and snow holy lotus planted by the snow saint in her body. It is not a seal, but it is more terrifying than a seal. As long as she runs, once the holy lotus explodes, she will instantly turn into ashes. Damn monster. Kurosaki Ichigo was kicked away by the bee and complained angrily. He lost the power of the god of death, but at this moment he has not awakened the power of the god of death, that is, ordinary human beings. For him, this high-intensity cultivation is simply killing him. It's been 5 days. Qinyang stood on the 2nd floor, looking down at the people below. Ichigo Kurosaki, it seems that deep down in your heart, you have no idea of regaining your power, otherwise, you would have awakened the power of death long ago. Quote. I don't need this kind of power. Ichigo Kurosaki gasped and shouted, why do I have to do such a thing? Let me go, I still have to go to school, and I haven't been home for 5 days. The family is worried. Naive boy. Qinyang shook his head, since you miss your family so much, I'll let someone pick them up. You have 2 younger sisters, don't you? Hearing this, Ichigo Kurosaki's expression changed slightly. Just then, the door of the church was pushed open, and a man and a woman walked in. In an instant, everyone's eyes turned to the door. It's you, Urahara Kazuki. Shubi's eyes widened, and she said incredulously, Yichi. Yo, long time no see, Broken Bee. Saifeng Yuan Yi greeted with a smile. As she said that, she raised her head again and looked at Emperor Qin and Shui Sheng on the 2nd floor. I'm back. I know, Qinyang, Vivi Isho, said, otherwise, do you think you can come here? At this time, Urahara Kazuki Vivi raised his head, stared at Qinyang, and said, do you need my god-turning body? There is such a thing. Qinyang nodded, what? You brought it here yourself. Listen to what Mr. Yoichi said. Urahara Kazuki pressed down the brim of his hat and said solemnly, you can lend you props, you train them, you just want to wait for them to learn Bankai, and then grab their Zanpakudo. This is it doesn't matter, but I hope you can let everyone go after you achieve your goals. He. Qinyang haha Isho, said, Urahara Kazuki, what are you thinking, don't I know? In fact, you don't care about other people, what you really care about is Kuchiki Rukia no, to be precise, is her righteous corpse. Hearing this, Urahara Kazuki's expression changed suddenly, and he was a little confused. How do you know about that? Chapter 0457 King Arthur's Zanpakudo. Urahara Kazuki was a little confused. Who the hell is Emperor Qin? Even know such a thing. He hid the Bengyu in the corpse of the deadwood Rukia, except for the night of Sifengyuan and the Wuling Tizai, it is impossible for the rest of the people to know. Seeing his stunned expression, Qin Yang shook his head and said, I'm not interested in that. It's just a failed product. He has no idea of catching it for the time being. If he really wants to snatch it, he will have to wait for the two failed products to merge into a real collapse jade. However, Urahara Kazuki did not fully believe it. The power of Bengyu, as the maker, is very clear. What do you want? Urahara Kazuki said solemnly. What I want is very simple. Qin Yang pointed to Ichigo Kurosaki in the church hall. This guy has lost the power of death, you help him wake up, and then cultivate into Bankai. Kuchiki Rukia can give it back to you. The time is half a month. Quote. Hearing this, Urahara Kazuki was silent for a long time. This kind of verbal agreement is very unreliable. Who knows whether the other party will tear up the agreement. The reputation of my dream is much more valuable than your half-finished piece of Bengyu. Qin Yang said calmly. Besides that, keep the Tuan divine body. Also, that little female cat, you also stay and help me train a Sanjing Renji. Hearing this, Sifengyuan Yei looked helpless. In a short time, the name, little female cat, could not be washed away. Kazuki. Sifengyuan Yei nodded at him. I see, I hope you will abide by the agreement. Urahara Kazuki took a deep breath and said, the body of the gods is with Mr. Yoichi. Also, I don't know what your purpose is to capture the power of Zanpakuto, but every Zanpakuto is the soul of the god of death. It has the belief of every death god in it. I hope you don't play with fire and set yourself on fire. After he finished speaking, he looked at Kurosaki Ichigo, shook his head and said, Kurosaki-san, please come with me. As for being able to leave, Ichigo Kurosaki couldn't help it. Although he didn't fully understand the meaning of both parties, it would be best to be able to leave. As soon as the two of them left, Broken Bee finally couldn't help it and rushed towards the black cat. Yee at Sifengyuan. She yelled, her voice full of anger. Broken Bee. Looking at his former subordinates, Sifengyuan Yee's expression was calm. But at this moment, a huge coercion shrouded. Boom. Broken Bee only felt the heaven and the earth shake, and the whole soul was trembling. What? She widened her eyes and fell uncontrollably. A thud, she knelt to the ground, and her delicate body was already dripping with cold sweat. It's too presumptuous, little girl. Qin Yang looked like a great emperor. His eyes were indifferent. Pay attention to your identity, you are still a prisoner. As a prisoner under the order, be a little more honest. Hearing this, Broken Bee didn't seem to hear it, and the whole person was gasping for breath. In her senses, for a moment, it seemed that a world was suppressing her, and she, like a little ant in a storm, could only shiver. What a terrifying aura! Sifengyuan Yei was secretly shocked. This is Emperor Qin, just his aura can instantly suppress a captain. This momentum was not directed at her, but even so, the slightest leak made her feel uneasy. It's just that this terrifying momentum came and went quickly, and disappeared without a trace in an instant. This is the first time Qin Yang has used the illusion to suppress others. A world to suppress a person, even if this world is still very young, it is not something a leader of the level of Broken Bee can resist. Little she-cat, it's time to do something. Qin Yang raised his chin and motioned for the other party to work. My name is Sifengyuan Yaiki. I turned into a cat just to heal my wounds. After reluctantly defending one sentence, Sifengyuan Yei walked to a Sanjing Renji and asked, has the practice of Zanpakuto reached the stage of concretization? Not yet. That doesn't matter. In short, although there is danger, please do your best. Sifengyuan stretched out his hand and flicked it at night, and suddenly, a strange human body appeared. Turn the body, it can forcibly copy and materialize the body of the Zanpakuto. It is a tool to quickly learn Bankai. The developer is the man just now. So far, he is the only one who has succeeded. However, At the beginning he learned to bankai in 3 days. 3 days. A Sanjing Renji was shocked. Any reaper who has acquired bankai has no idea how many years it has taken. Using this tool, it only takes 3 days. Really? Of course. Saifeng Yuan Yi said casually, and then looked at Qin Yang. However, how do you know, turning the body? Want to know, Qin Yang said jokingly. As a pet, asking questions to the owner is not acceptable. Saifeng Yuan was speechless for a while, and an angry flash flashed between her brows. If you want to be called master, the second-person pronoun, you, is not suitable for you. Qin Yang teased, or Lord Qindi. Seoul World, Sarai T, the headquarters of the 13th Guardian Team, the captain's meeting. Aizen took a step forward and said softly, Captain, King Arthur has come out of the corridor of the Great Spirit Book. Huh. Yamamoto Yuanyujai raised his eyebrows slightly and said solemnly, what did he see? According to the observation of Vice Captain Hinamori Dao, King Arthur has seen a lot of information, mainly focusing on the history, customs, food, and general situation of Liuhun Street in the Seoul Society. Aizen explained it casually. Of course, he concealed a part, such as the Technology Development Bureau. King Arthur read a lot of information about the Technology Development Bureau. Really? Yamamoto Yuanyujai did not know why, and could not guess the purpose of King Arthur. By the way, he made a request. As if remembering something, Aizen said, King Arthur made a request to us through Vice Captain Youngsen as soon as he left the Great Spirit Book corridor. What? Dongxian said dissatisfiedly. This person's origin is unknown, and we are already grateful for allowing him to enter the Great Spirit Book corridor, but he still has a request. King Arthur said that he needs a Zanpakudo, which is the most basic, shallow strike. Aizen shook his head and said, for this reason, he is willing to tell us some information about the dream. Shallow hit. Many captains present were surprised. Shallow fight is the nameless Zanpakudo. There are countless 1.8 swords in the Seoul Society. Even a student of the True Spiritual Art Academy will have one in their school days. It can be said that shallow play is worthless, but without official channels, it is not easy to obtain. The only problem is giving the shallow fight to someone who is not a god of death. This guy, do you want to be a god of death? Just kidding, even if you get a shallow punch, you can't turn it into a real Zanpakudo without the right way. He doesn't even know the basic courses of the True Spirit Academy, so it's impossible for him to succeed. Everyone looked at the commander-in-chief. Yamamoto Yuanyujai pondered for a moment and said, give it to him. A few hours later, the 5th Division. King Arthur got his own punch, a nameless Zanpakudo. These gods of death must think that I can't do it. I really couldn't do it before, but after reading the information on the Great Spirit Book corridor, I'm afraid that I will scare them to death. Chapter 0458-1 Day Shikai. The King of Knights stayed in the Great Spirit Book corridor for nearly a week. Within a week, he basically saw the information he wanted to see. First of all, regarding the cross-boundary gate, this is not some kind of ghost way, but a special facility. It is impossible to create a boundary-piercing gate out of thin air. Of course, there is not only one gate of crossing the world. Some noble families in the Seoul world have their own gates of crossing the world. For example, the Sha Dalu family, the Kuimu family, and the Saifeng Yuan family, one of the 4 great nobles, and so on. In addition, the King of Knights also saw a lot of interesting information about the Technology Development Bureau, and about the Zanpakudo. Most importantly, he learned about Wang Jian. Just as he was thinking, a figure suddenly came out of the door. The King of Knights looked up and saw Aizen and Hinamori Momo entering the door one after another. King Arthur, I have already given you the light shot you asked for. Aizen said gently. About dream information. Hearing this, the King of Knights chuckled lightly, put away the shallow play, and then said casually, what do you want to know about dream? How many members does this organization have? This was not what Eisen wanted to ask, but what was instructed above. Of course, he was also very interested. There are nearly 20 core members. King of Knights pondered and said, I haven't seen all of them. Needless to say, Zusheng, Heilong, Shadow Demon, and Nine Tails, let's talk about a few that you haven't seen yet. Hearing this, Lan Ran raised her eyebrows, secretly surprised in her heart. Nearly 20 core members, that is to say, there are at least 20 captain-level combat power, including the master level. In this way, this organization is terrible. Only the King of Knights continued to say, the Archangel is a special monster who has obtained divine power. No one has ever seen his true face, but he is one of the masters and possesses extraordinary healing power. Even if his heart is pierced, he can save people as soon as possible. Quote. Does such a monster still exist? Eisen was a little surprised. Maybe you can see it later. The King of Knights chuckled and said, however, for you, the last thing you want to meet is the Lich King. The Lich King. Yes, he has an army of undead, a sea of corpses, an army of undead. Of course, the most troublesome thing is that the Lich is good at playing with souls. If you meet him, your best choice is to turn around and run away. Death is the spirit body, the body of the soul, and the Lich King restrains them very much. Lan Ran nodded and asked again, so, what about Emperor Qin? What do you know about Emperor Qin? And G.T., Shan. Don't call this name directly, he can feel it. The King of Knights said solemnly, that person is not a monster, but it is not a human being to tell you that, even if all the big monsters in the dream attack him, they will not be able to hold on to it. 10 minutes. The combat power of the phantom god Qinyang alone exceeds that of all the fantasy members combined. Of course, that's an exaggeration, but it's not too wrong. Eisen was completely shocked, and for a while, he didn't know what to say. Looks like Ichimaru Jin has to get in touch with Dream as soon as possible. Eisen thought to himself. Dream, the unstable factor, cannot be an enemy for the time being. That's about it, the King of Knights grinned. More, I don't know. It's been very useful, thanks for the information. Eisen exhaled lightly and said, as for the shallow fight, you should only contact it. It is not appropriate for you to study at the True Central Spiritual Arts Academy. I will simply demonstrate it. Saying that, he drew out his Zanpakuto. Every Zanpakuto can become Shikai. The key is to know the name of the Zanpakuto and communicate with your own swordsmanship. Shikai, 99% of the official death gods, can achieve. But after Bankai, it was extremely difficult. Every Shinigami who has cultivated Bankai will leave a strong legacy in the history of the Soul Society. To become captain, one of the criteria is to reach Bankai. The characteristic of Bankai is the multiplication of Reiatsu, which is roughly 5 to 10 times that of Shikai. Eisen hung her Zanpakuto upside down in front of the King of Knights. My Zanpakuto is a flowing water type, using light interfere with the enemy and let them kill each other. Watch it, I'll demonstrate Shikai. Hearing this, the King of Knights sneered inwardly. He couldn't hold it in anymore, he wanted to hypnotize himself. Unfortunately, it was of no use. Through the mirror, Zanpakuto emitted a faint blue light, and seeing the King of Knights take a serious look at it, Eisen laughed suddenly. How is it? Do you have any insights? He asked casually. This is Shikai, just know the name. The King of Knights, Vivi Isho, sat down with his knees crossed. He placed the knife between his knees and slowly closed his eyes. Sword Zen. This is the way the higher death god communicates with his Zanpakuto. Lan Ran was stunned, and said softly, I even know this. The King of Knights didn't have time to pay attention to the other party. He immersed his mind in the shallow fight, and then the scene changed, and his consciousness came to a unique space. What a fast progress. Eisen couldn't help but secretly said, so skilled in swordsmanship. It doesn't look like the first time. This is not because the Night King's talent is amazing, it is simply because he is an expert in swordsmanship, and unlike ordinary people who get shallow blows, he is a swordsman who is a halfway monk, but he is very handy when it comes to swordsmanship. Shaking his head, Eisen didn't bother him, and instead said to his vice captain, "Young Sen, you 610 should be here to protect him." "Yes, Captain Eisen." After giving the order, Eisen turned and left. Not to mention his actions, the King of Knights quickly entered the Sword Zen, and communicated with Qianda in the space of consciousness. The power of the soul and the shallow fight complement each other, and gradually, the blade of the shallow fight exudes a faint golden brilliance. Hina Moritau waited by the side, and this watch lasted for a whole day. When the night fell, a dazzling golden light suddenly erupted from the light strike of the King of Knights. This golden light soared into the sky, and at the same time, a spiritual pressure erupted in the 5th team's quarters. In an instant, the entire Saraiti, the captain-level gods of death, felt the birth of this unfamiliar spiritual pressure. And this spiritual pressure is still increasing rapidly at an extremely fast speed. "This is," the drowsy Hina Sendao suddenly widened her eyes and said incredulously, Is this the completion of Shikai's practice? Incredible, so fast." She stared blankly at the King of Knights, but saw that the other party slowly opened his eyes, and the golden light flashed in his eyes. "You," Hina Sendao opened her mouth. He. King of Knights grinned Isho and returned from the consciousness space, "Shikai. As long as you find the right way, it's surprisingly easy." Saying that, he raised his Zanpakudo and injected his own spiritual pressure. "Wake up, Knights of the Round Table." Chapter 0459_God of Swords. Wake up, Knights of the Round Table. Along with the liberating words of the King of Knights, the blade of the Zanpakudo shone with golden brilliance. The shape of its blade changed from a tachi to a Western great sword, with the edge of the sword in the shape of an arc. The first Shikai, this process lasted for a few minutes, and after a long time, the golden light gradually dissipated. Did Hinamori see clearly the appearance of this Zanpakudo Shikai, which was a typical Western sword, very similar to another sword of the King of Knights? "Success?" she asked softly. Hearing this, the King of Knights put the Zanpakudo back into its sheath, and asked nonchalantly, "Deputy Captain Hinamori, thank you very much for being there for your protection." Whether it was successful or not, the King of Knights avoided talking about it. His Zanpakudo was quite special, and Shikai's abilities did not want to be exposed for the time being. "This is my duty." Hinamori Dao let out a sigh of relief, and then said with admiration, "It's amazing, except for the often liberating Zanpakudo, as far as I know, your Shikai is the fastest." Shikai in one day is nothing short of subverting common sense. The 3rd Division Captain Ichimaru Jin and the 10th Division Captain Hitsugaya Toshiro, who are called geniuses, are far inferior. According to historical records, there was a god of death who sat in meditation for 3 days to complete Shikai, which was almost unbelievable. However, the speed of cultivation of the King of Knights was even faster. At this moment, a black butterfly flew out of the door, flapping its wings, and stopped on the left shoulder of Hina Moritau. Yes, I see." Young Sendao made a gesture of listening and nodded again and again. "Arthur, this is the Hell Butterfly, and many of the contact between the gods of death rely on it." She explained first, and then said, "The captain wants to see you. Please come with me." Hearing this, the King of Knights had a thought and immediately followed. He thought it was Yamamoto Yuanyujai looking for him, asking about the dreamer Shikai, but when he actually arrived at the first team building, he saw 3 people. 2 males and 1 female. This woman is a spy of Team 0, Dazisho, Shutara Chinshumaru. This woman went to the world to investigate. After being repelled by Shui Sheng, she returned to the Spirit King Palace. A member of Team 0. Yamamoto Yuanyujai looked at the King of Knights, but did not speak. Beside him, another male with punk curly hair wears wide-rimmed sunglasses, headphones around his neck, and a grass-green shirt and slippers, with haori showing a long sleeveless swing. Seeing the King of Knights at this moment, the man grinned and grinned, took a step closer, and said, "Hello, the legendary king of Europe. I am the God of Swords, Two-House King U. X, Team 0, the King of Knights asked knowingly. It seems that you have seen a lot of confidential information in the corridor of the Great Spirit Book. Shutara Chinshumaru nodded and said, "Yes, both of us are members of Team 0. I want to see you this time." Meiwu Wang Yu said with a smile, "I gave you the shallow punch in your hand. Reason why it is called Knife God is because this person created the Zanpakuto 2000 years ago. All the shallow hits are made by this person. You are rather special, not an Oriental, nor a Japanese, so I'm also very curious about whether a light punch will work for you." Meiwu Wang Yu said with great interest, "There are also some experimental purposes, so the shallow punch I specially gave you is not the same as the general shallow punch." Huh. King of Knights raised his eyebrows, different. It's a failure. Wang Yu snapped her fingers and took out a silver token from her pocket. "Please take this one." "What is this?" The King of Knights took it and observed it a little. The front of the token is a skull, and the back is a name, which is Wang Yu's, King, character. Your shallow blow is a failure, but it's not the kind of sword that breaks everything. I originally wanted to build a sword that could cut everything, but after finishing it, I found that there was no scabbard that could hold it, so I went back and forth. Go back to the furnace and rebuild it, and that's why you have this shallow punch in your hands. To House Wang Yu Vivi Isho, with a hip-hop tone, as for this token, if you finish Bankai, but you can't control this knife, it will help you. The King of Knights did not believe a word of this statement. Of course, there must be a real part in there, but definitely something else is implied. In this token, I am afraid that some monitor or other equipment has been installed. Of course, the King of Knights doesn't care about this kind of small trick, as long as there is no problem with a shallow shot. Thinking of this, he nodded, pretending to be ignorant and saying, "I see, thank you for your reminder." "You're welcome, your information has brought us great help." To House Wang Yu Ha Isho said. Afterwards, he asked about Shikai again. Of course, the King of Knights would not tell him clearly. After a brief conversation, the King of Knights left. As soon as the people left, Yamamoto Yuanyujai said solemnly, "This will ensure this person." Not necessarily. Meiwu Wang Yu shook her head. "I'm afraid he also found something, but people don't care." Saying that, he scratched his head. Compared to this, Kuchiki Gyakuya has a bigger problem. Kuchiki Gyakuya's Zanpakuto was taken away by Dream Snow Sage, and if he wants to get it back, there will be no way for a while. Therefore, I am afraid that the two Wang Yu will have to build a temporary Zanpakuto specially for them. Dream Monster seems to be very interested in Zanpakuto. He secretly said, "Could it be that Zanpakuto, even the creator of me, doesn't know how to use it?" He had to be so suspicious, because other people's Zanpakuto could not be used by others, and at best it was a sharp sword. Not to mention the situation in the Soul Society, the present world is Kakuzucho. Late at night, on the top floor of the cathedral. On a balcony, Chinyong sat upright, enjoying the night view while drinking and taking a nap. Suddenly, he said calmly, "Don't hide your breath, you are 10 kilometers away, and I have already discovered you." Clap clap clap. The applause sounded, and I saw a figure stepping out of the air in front of the balcony. The visitor has a fox-like smile on his waist. As expected of the leader of the great fantasy demon. As he approached, he said, "I am the captain of the 3rd Division, Ichimaru Jin." He. Chinyong shook the fine wine in the glass and said with a chuckle, "What's the matter? If you say you're drinking with me, then forget it." In this regard, Ichimaru Jin remained calm. Dream now occupies the empty seat town, and the soul world will have nothing to do with you for a while. Your purpose is this land of heavy spirits, and ultimately you want to create a Wangjan, break into the soul world, and invade the palace of the King of Spirits. Ichimaru Jin's mouth curved like a snake. Emperor Qin is very powerful, but this kind of action cannot be said to be successful. Our Captain Eisen is very interested in this. How about joining forces? Join us. Qin Yang's eyes pondered. The blue dye you said is the one from the Zai Palace, or the one from the Corpse Soul Realm? Hearing this, Ichimaru Yin's complexion changed drastically. Chapter-440-arrest Kuchiki Rukia. You know. Ichimaru Jin's expression changed, but the smile was gone. Not long after he returned from the Void Knight Palace, he reached some kind of agreement with the fantasy body Blue Dye. After that, he was instructed by the death god Blue Dye to let him meet the dream and test the other party's attitude. I just didn't expect that Emperor Qin actually knew about the two blue dyes. How do you know? Ichimaru Jin thought to himself, thinking of many possibilities in an instant. You know each other. He. Qin Yang chuckled, sipped his wine, raised his head and stared at the night sky. Of course I know. We have dealt with each other. Hearing this, Ichimaru Jin was silent for a while, and Dream came to know Eisen of Zai Palace, which made him have many other thoughts. Who is that person? After a while, he asked tentatively, not expecting Emperor Qin to tell him the answer. It's like the stars in the sky, they look indistinguishable, but that's just because you're too small. Qin Yang said indifferently. Who is that person? Of course it is Lan Ran Suyusuk. What's the mess? Ichimaru Jin couldn't understand this kind of godlike words, and he didn't bother to look into it. Thinking of this, he had no choice but to say, it's Captain Eisen of the Soul World. He has the same goal as you, so he has the basis for joining forces. King Ling. Qin 017 Yang shook his head. How to join forces? He does not reject this kind of cooperation, and Eisen takes the lead. He is very happy. He has no interest in the Spirit King. What he cares about is the mysterious power of the Spirit King Palace. Inside and outside should be coordinated. Ichimaru Yin said. Information sharing. You dispatched your combat power to invade Seraiti, and we were responsible for causing riots within. For this, we can control the central 46th room and issue orders to fight the war in the Soul World. The force is dispersed, and the fatal blow is delivered at the critical moment. Quote. To put it simply, Dream is responsible for the fight, and Eisen is responsible for causing a commotion. As for the critical moment to give a fatal blow, such verbal words are not binding at all. Of course, this is not the real purpose of Eisen. For Eisen, at this stage, the most important thing is, Benyu, that is, Kuchiki Rukia. Team up with Dream, and then find an excuse to hand over Kuchiki Rukia. Hearing this, Qin Yang suddenly laughed. I have no intention of destroying the Soul Realm in one go. In contrast, I am very interested in Zhenyang Xingcheng of Jingling Ting. The Shino execution ground is dedicated to the execution of the sinful god of death. There is a Shuangyutai, which is said to have a destructive power equivalent to 1,000,000 Zanpakuto. Since Bankai's Zanpakuto can absorb it, Shuangshengtai can naturally absorb it too. Not only that, I am afraid that the mysterious power contained in the Shuangshengtai is much larger. As for destroying the Soul Society, Qin Yang has no plans to do so for the time being. On the contrary, he just needs to keep putting pressure on the Soul Society, and they will continue to have people reaching Bankai, and then they will become mysterious powers that can be absorbed. Thinking of this, Qin Yang said, you go back and tell Lan Ran, and he will understand. As for joining forces, it depends on whether you have the qualifications. He intends to let Eisen stir the wind and rain, and when necessary, he will stand up and absorb the Shuangshengtai. Hearing this, Ichimaru Jin nodded and turned to leave immediately. I see, I'll pass it on to Captain Eisen. Before leaving, he threw out a button-sized communicator. This is a liaison device. I'm afraid it will be more difficult to meet next time. With this, we can hide from the detection and surveillance of the Technology Development Bureau. After speaking, he quickly disappeared into the night. Not long after, a black cat walked to the balcony. I sensed a trace of spiritual pressure just now. What happened? Siphon Yuan Yi asked curiously. Little female cat, how is Asanjing Renji's progress? Chin-young asked back. Very talented, but I'm afraid it will take time to reach Bankai. Saifeng Yuan Yi sighed. You train him like this, wait for him to become Bankai, and then take it back, what's the purpose? She didn't want to help with training at all, but at the moment, Bengyu, to be precise, Kuchiki Rukia was in Dream's hands, and she had to cooperate obediently. Who knows? Compared to this, I'm afraid something big will happen soon. You have to work hard. Chin-young chuckled, drank the perfect wine, put down the glass with a snap, then got up, took one step, and disappeared in an instant. Saifeng Yuan Yi Vivi frowned. Major event. What major event? 2 days later, the Soul Realm. In a dark room somewhere in Saranjay, Aizen sat in front of the surveillance screen, listening to Ichimaru Jin's report. The above is the result of the conversation with Emperor Qin. On the big screen, Ichimaru Yin said with a smile. Really, good work, Silver. Aizen nodded and smiled immediately. Since he is interested in the hill of Shuangshang, then we will cooperate with them. As for Zai Palace, we will not deal with it for the time being. When this incident is over, I will meet him in person. So, Captain Aizen, what's next? I will issue an order through the central 46th room to change the task of, bring back Kuchiki Rukia. 2. Arrest Kuchiki Rukia, let the dream cooperate with us, and then sentence it to a felony and a capital punishment. His purpose is the collapse of the Deadwood Rukia, and the purpose of the dream is to double down. This is also a message that Chin-young deliberately conveyed, and Aizen is naturally willing to cooperate. As for the matter of jointly attacking the Spirit King Palace, we will talk about it later. Whether to continue cooperation or not depends on the situation. At the same time, Aizen is not afraid of dream tricks. As long as Kuchiki Rukia returns to the Soul Realm, he has a way to get the Bengyu. Once he gets the Bengyu, he can break with the Guardian 13 team, and there is no need to continue to play the role of the dutiful captain. The action of arresting Rukia Kuchiki will change from the original 6th division to your 3rd division. Silver, it's up to you. Yes, Captain Aizen. 3 days later, a shocking event occurred in Kakuzucho. The captain of the 3rd division, Ichimaru Jin, took advantage of the absence of Emperor Qin and the time when Shui Sheng was out, and rescued the 7 prisoners of death, including Renji Asani, who had just learned Bankai, and Luki Kuchiki, who had lost the power of death. Yeah. Urahara Kazuki, who heard the news, immediately shrank his pupils. Oops. He murmured in his mouth, and looked at Kurosaki Ichigo who was cultivating, and his face suddenly became gloomy. I've been tricked. Dream and Aizen, I'm afraid there is a secret deal. If it wasn't for the dream to deliberately create opportunities for Ichimaru Jin, it would be unrealistic to rely on Ichimaru Jin's strength to save people. At the same time, break the boundaries. Ichimaru Jin took Kuchiki Rukia and his party back to the Soul Realm. Asanjing Renji breathed heavily and said, thanks to Captain Ichimaru, otherwise, we may never be able to escape. Asanjing-kun, as the captain, this is my duty. Ichimaru Jin, Vivi Isho, said, we are not yet safe, let's go, and return to Saraiti as soon as possible. Yes.